Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Oh, Be Patient, My Lady. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! The story opens with Rose White having a dream in which she is a child again and is attempting to make some sort of deal with a man in a hood. Then, blue butterflies start appearing after they make a pact to risk all for one another. Her cute golem gently awakens her to start the day, cutting short her recurring dream. Rose White is the last heir of the White family, the world's smallest and only self-governing territory. Our girl is the proud lord of this place. She then goes in search of Ig, who she knows is in their greenhouse tending to the magic crystal that regulates the climate there. She gets an apple and tenderly munches on it while she waits. Although apples are common fruit elsewhere, in White, every vegetable and fruit is highly valued. This is because the White Kingdom, some 500 years ago, lost to the Emperor and was banished empty-handed to the White Mountains, a barren region covered in ice. She may be a lord, but all she inherited was her bloodline, cold, and hunger. After her father's death, she's doing her best to pull their territory out of poverty. Thanks to Ig's magic, they're able to live in a frozen wasteland. The lone mage that supported the White's king 500 years ago, Archmage Yggdrasil, a powerful mage who was supposedly raised by a dragon and is now Rose's protector and teacher. She wonders how old he really is, but her issue is his salary. Since before, her ancestors had given half of the White's profits to Ig, and now she's planning to decrease his salary but couldn't. Given their territory's limited resources, he's been paid poorly despite being a powerful magician who served as her butler, tutor, protector, and even their territory's representative. Back in the palace, Rose and Ig are discussing their success in advertising a tour in their region. Their place is rare and special, so nobles love to see it, and since no one can actually reach White without a warp magic on their invitations, nobles have to buy it from them. The bloodline tax is also driving sales. Descendants of the White family who live elsewhere are eager to pay the tax in order to maintain their royal position. The invitations, sales, and tax are keeping them afloat, but this is not enough. Ig mentions that people are actually looking for the mythical treasures in the White Mountains. However, he believes they might not be myths at all, as he has sensed a rising mana wave in the area. Rose becomes intrigued and decides to acquire those jewels for themselves to free them from money trouble. Margaret, one of her trusted servants, worries for her since the journey to the mountain is really dangerous. She assures her she'll be fine since Arthur, the guardian knight of White, and Ig are with her. She's so excited to get those jewels, but what they find is so far from the treasure they're looking for. They find a cute white dragon hatchling. Every hero story involves defeating a dragon, and once upon a time, an immature noble wanting to become a hero killed a dragon hatchling and had his entire kingdom burned in fire by the mother dragon. So, it's really best to keep your distance from the hatchlings. But it's too late for that now, since this adorable little dragonling has attached himself to Rose. She can't just force the baby to let go, fearing that it might start crying and its mother might come back rushing. As a mage who received power from a dragon, Ig can't help her since he is forbidden to touch them, while Arthur is afraid that he may accidentally harm the baby. When Ig checks, it appears like the baby dragon is not being cared for, so Rose tries to feed it a sandwich, but it refuses. White dragons only eat frozen food, so after Ig freezes the meals, the baby begins munching them. Ig then asks her to leave with Arthur while he waits for the hatchling's parents, just to make sure they won't get the wrong idea about their visit. He can't risk her life, but she's so persistent that he has to give in. The mother dragon then shows up, and she seems to recognize Yggdrasil as the one who stole the heart of an ancient dragon, Rednia. After she believes that they have touched her baby and broken into her house, she becomes enraged. She begins radiating a strong aura, but stops when she sees her baby sound asleep. She breaks down in tears of joy as she explains that her baby's inability to sleep has deprived her of rest for the past 3 years. She expresses her gratitude and introduces herself as Snow, the keeper of the White Mountain. Then, when Snow learns that Rose was the lord of a territory close to the mountains, Rose couldn't refuse to take her in. They are now drinking tea, and Rose learns that Snow and her husband decided to have a child as soon as they became adults, so they really don't know anything about parenting. And she worries for her baby, since a hatchling receives knowledge through dreams. Rose thinks it's a great idea to win the dragon's favor, so she offers to help her with parenting in exchange for expanding their territory in the mountains. The dragon happily accepts and even offers Rose diamond mines. While Ig sobs at the idea of increased responsibilities, Rose is excited to finally start stocking up on diamonds for their treasury. Rose has been running a hatchling kindergarten for 3 months now, where parents can also learn about parenting. Although Snow is overjoyed with how things are progressing, her gold dragon friend Edie warns her to be cautious because of how humans have mistreated dragons in the past. Of course, Snow was first concerned, but the people of White have never discriminated against them. And after getting to know Lord Rose, Snow is eager to become part of the White community. Aww, Snow White and the hatchlings! One night, Rose asked Ig if he can introduce her to a dwarf. Since they are expanding their territory, they will need the dwarves' smelting skills. It's a good thought, but dwarves are notoriously difficult to work with, as far as Ig can tell. Once they develop a dislike for you, they will stop catering to your needs. They better find someone else. But when he learns that Rose isn't planning to have the dwarves work for them, but rather have them teach their people the special skills so they can pass it down to future generations, he listens proudly to her and decides to do what it takes to help her set up a meeting with the dwarves. Rose runs out of his office, giddy with anticipation, while Ig can't believe his former crybaby is now maturing. Meanwhile, the Emperor is taking out his anger on the Magic Tower Master for failing to create powerful chimeras, his supposedly powerful army that can fight against the Pope's divine power. They need to know how Yggdrasil made his golems to perfect their chimeras, so the Tower Master prepares to plant a spy in White. Rose is surprised that not just one dragon, but 2 dragons are planning to become citizens of White. Edie presents herself, and like Snow, she is fascinated by White's domain and wishes to be part of their expansion plans. Rose and Ig are hesitant at first, but after seeing how much gold Edie intends to spend on the construction, they just can't say no. They will stop selling invitations from now on since their treasury is already full. Thank you, dragons! They then start talking about the expansion when suddenly a warp opens and the dwarves she's been waiting for finally arrive. Knocker, the leader, is so mad since Ig uses the invitation as bait to have them warped without warning. And before he can say more, the golems have tied them up to be washed. Now that they are squeaky clean, the official meeting can finally start. Rose introduces herself, but Knocker cuts her off, saying she's too young to be negotiating with him. Ig is getting a bit upset, but our girl has a plan up her sleeve. So to start it, she asks the dwarves to tour their territory first and rest for the day before they do business. Rose makes sure to tour Knocker near their blacksmith's workplace, and as soon as the cranky old dwarf spots a smith doing a poor job, he offers to teach him the ropes. She's such a scammer to have the dwarf teach them skills without him knowing. That night, the dwarves are having fun drinking at the inn Rose prepares for them. Knocker is having a good time, and after his tour today, he realizes that White isn't actually a bad place. He then sees a golem mug, and because he's already drunk, he decides to carve a handsome face on the mug. Well, the carving isn't really appealing to the mug owner, Red, a dragon baby who's now crying. Rose demands Knocker pay 10 million gold, which is way too expensive for him. But after knowing that the mug is made of Red's baby tooth and Ig's out-of-this-world magic, it really makes sense. Knocker is now sweating heavily, but Rose has a solution for him, and that is to teach their smiths their special skills instead of paying them with money. More like a trap for you, Knocker. He plans to discuss this with the other dwarves, but he's surprised to know that everyone has already agreed. Snow and Edie are watching them and now understand why the Great Mage decided to stay in White. Ig is raising a king along with a utopian kingdom. Rose has heard that Ig is planning to hire a new mage, so she quickly goes to his office to angrily explain they don't need one. When suddenly, the new mage cuts them and shares that he may be a help to them since he knows the future. The new mage reveals that he died once, and though his memories are vague, he knows that the world will burn in the future. Something inside him is telling him to come to the White to find his answers, and he begs Rose to hire him, but she really can't since they really don't need one at the moment. So instead, Ig agrees to have the wind mage, James, as his student, which the young mage happily accepts. Rose is now having a meeting with Edie, whom she is assigned to find them a new weapon and other product trading partners outside the Empire. Edie's preparations are going well, but what intrigues her right now is the news that those who left White are being sacrificed, and most of them are now missing. She provides Rose with a list, and Rose is familiar with every name on it because they are all dear to her, but have since departed in search of financial stability. All this time, she thought they were living happily, but then she learned that most of them are living as slaves in Florence City. Since everyone in white receives a proper education, Arthur thought they would be able to find good professions. Sadly, it appears that the city discriminates against foreigners, which means that they were unable to find work and consequently were unable to pay taxes. As a result, they were forced into slavery, which has made Rose very angry. Meanwhile, it looks like James is actually the Wizard Tower's spy. After receiving a call from his master reminding him of his mission, he trembles as he recalls the oncoming future where a dragon burns everything to ashes. He then finds Rose and Ig arguing about Rose's plan to invade Florence City. She's really upset right now and doesn't want to live in regret, so Ig has no choice but to go along with her plan. That night, a boy on a run is hiding from the wolves, trembling with guilt for leaving white when Rose, along with Ig and James, arrives in style to save him. She's coming to save her people. Let's go! Then, Rose thinks back to the sad times when people first started leaving white, but she's no longer the kid who cries and complains. She is now a lord who protects her people. She looks like such a baddie with her dark outfit. I love it. She looks so proud when she gives the big doggos bones to eat when they warp Tom, the young lad, back home. Back in Florence City, the Baron and his servants are pressuring a poor lady to pay her taxes, or they will harm her baby when the rescue team arrives. Ig safely retrieves her baby while our girl and her tamed big doggos launch an attack. When the Baron desperately needs help, he rushes to Rose, but Ig uses his power to stop him. Now that he knows Ig is a mage, he insists that he stop the attacks because he is an ally of his master, the Wizard Tower's master. He's been providing Caius, the Tower Master, with the materials he needs, and James begins to have a bad feeling about it since he knows his master has been researching chimeras. Since chimeras are the result of hybridization, and since he has had little success studying them with animals, he must have used the missing peoples as test subjects. Rose grits in anger while the Baron exposes himself thanks to his pride and brazenly declares he can do whatever he wants with his slaves. Rose, enraged at the Baron and unwilling to wait for their god Dandelion to carry out punishment, causes blue butterflies to appear, changes the color of her eyes from black to blue, and unleashes an attack. Our girl has powers! Ig is completely taken aback by her power and recalls the time when he first saw a young Rose with a divine creature. They call the creature of the world Dandelion, and legends say divine animals and blue butterflies appear to those loved by the god. However, this is both a blessing and a curse. The force of her aura has caught everyone off guard, and the Baron gets struck by lightning shortly thereafter, although it apparently wasn't fatal enough to kill him. Rose's face lights up with pride at the realization that Dandelion hurt her, but Ig changes the subject by suggesting that they should find the captives quickly. They are now in an underground dungeon, and the rotting smell starts to overwhelm them as they descend. She screams in surprise when a person in a cell grabs her. She then realizes the person is Raymond, the White's divine knight, who's been dispatched to the central temple. He appears pallid and as if he has been experimented on, practically becoming an undead chimera. Ig, knowing that Rose possesses divine power, asks her to check on Raymond, and while he is weak, Rose is relieved to find signs of life inside him. The mages hauled them around and injected them with weird medications. After most of them died, they were used as playthings for the Baron. In his current state, Raymond is unfit to return to the temple, but he begs Rose to help the elves, who are also trapped in the dungeon. They have fought beside him to stop the chimera experiments, so he feels responsible for their lives. Our sweet girl accepts and even asks him to return home with them. No one is allowed to touch Rose's people, and the fact that they dared to harm the White's one and only divine knight can only end in war. She plans to take care of the Baron first, and their next target is Caius. When Baron Florence wakes up, he finds himself buried up to his neck in the very garden where he had buried his victims. As further punishment, Rose plans to seize his riches and businesses as payments for the slaves. Wait, there's more. The most well-deserved part of her punishment is the unending lightning strikes in the garden, so no one will dare help him. He trembles in fear and starts screaming for help when he starts hearing the bones talking to him. They come home where she is instantly hugged by her frightened nanny Margaret, and after Rose receives word that the rescued people are now being treated, she collapses from fatigue. After reassuring Rose's condition, Ig goes to Edie's office and shares what happened in Florence. Edie is smart, so she knows Ig is upset that she gave the report to Rose instead of him. She understands that Ig only wants to protect Rose from the outside world, since it has been said that those loved by God and receiving enormous divine power end up dying sooner, so as much as possible, he doesn't want Rose to use her powers. However, it's too late now. Rose's power has already been released, and it will undoubtedly spread throughout the Empire. She loves Rose and wants to see how far she can grow, so as an adult, she convinces him that they should protect her from the sidelines while allowing her to make her own judgments. Human lifespans are too short for Ig, who has existed for centuries. Many kings have left him, but Rose has a special place in his heart. He has been there since Rose was a lonely, curious child, and one time she wondered about her parents. Ig was the one who consoled her, showed her a mirror, put the crown on her head, and instilled that everything she's looking for is in her. Her kind father, beautiful mother, and the world's strongest mage. She can do whatever she wants. But Ig was surprised when all this little kid wanted was to become rich enough to make all of her people stay happily in white. Her dream was so genuine that he promised to help her achieve it, and if becoming rich will not make her happy in the end, he is ready to run away with her to a happy place. After regaining consciousness, Rose is taken aback to see that Ig isn't angry with her and will even support her in her decisions. She eventually nods off again, unable to hear Ig talk about how their lives are connected, and he assures her that he will stay as long as she likes. It's been a month, and White is busy with the construction, while Knocker notices elves assisting the town to show their appreciation for Lord Rose. Most of them have healed and want to stay, which Rose agrees to, given that Raymond begged her to. Raymond's wounds have healed, but they still need to know what kind of experiment Caius performed on them so that they can develop an antidote to restore his power. She then goes to James and asks him anything he knows about Caius's Chimera experiments, but he looks like he knows nothing. She also wants to know if he can fight alongside her against the Tower Master, but he can't since technically he's still a member of the Tower, which is something she recognizes and respects. Meanwhile, the smithy is improving at creating weapons, which means Knocker will soon finish his contract and return home. However, this grumpy dwarf seems to be warming up to White, so he takes a stroll to clear his head and comes across a snow-covered elf. After Knocker brings the elf to Rose and Ig, the Prince of the Light Tribe's son formally announces himself. He's handsome, but his rudeness in demanding assistance from Rose negates whatever charm he could have. Seeing the intensity of the situation, Knocker believes he should not have brought the elf along. Rose, enraged, tells him she has no idea what he's talking about or why he shamelessly demands help from them, despite the fact that they've just met. The prince is getting mad and explains that when the tower's wizards attempted to create chimeras, the temple's priest asks the elves for help. Though they do not want to be involved in human conflicts, they helped conquer the chimeras in order to protect all species. The angered mages hunted the elves. Once captured, the elves' powers were sealed. They were experimented on and enslaved, cornered, and in dire need of human assistance. They begged that humans would repay their goodness, but they were ignored. Rose retorts that it was the elves who made the decision and that White has no connection to the outside world, thus they are not to blame. But because of her kind nature, she lets him stay and rest so he can calm down before he makes a proper request, and she goes. When Prince Sun sees Ig unlock the metal collar around his neck, he is shocked to learn that Ig is aware that he is a hostage of the mages. And when Ig tells him that the elves they saved from Florence are staying in White, he's even more taken aback. Ig suggests that he talk to other elves and observe Lord Rose during his stay. Life, one of the elves, is delighted to see Prince Sun and inquires as to his whereabouts. The prince shares that he escaped from being hostage, hid in a temple of the Dandelion, and ended up in White. He feels responsible for his people's suffering since they trusted humans when they shouldn't have. But Life points out that the elves have made the decision together. Humans might have started the war, but the elves would have been in danger if the chimeras had been created. Prince Sun is skeptical that he will ever be able to forgive the humans for betraying them. The next day, Prince Sun keeps following Rose in the garden, so when she asks what he needs, he instantly apologizes for his previous behavior. Rose asks him to help her water the garden to establish rapport, and they quickly become comfortable since they both enjoy gardening. He listens as Rose shares her dream to have their territory filled with greenery, and sees how genuine Rose is, so this time, he formally apologizes for being rude and thanks her for saving his people. Rose accepts and she understands how he feels, and she too hates evil people. All she can do is not to become like them, and the way she smiles at him makes our guy fall for her. The sun has found his sunshine. The Emperor is irritated because the chimera that Caius is working on is still incomplete. So he mentions that there are rumors about a dragon living near the White Mountains and wonders if they may catch that dragon instead of waiting for the chimera to be finished. Caius shivers as the Emperor warns him about his deadline. James is secretly communicating with Caius, who's pressing him for information about Egg's golem creation process. However, James is now hesitant to execute his master's command and instead asks him bluntly why he conducts his chimera experiments on human beings. When Caius nonchalantly tells him that it is the job of mages to study and create new beings from all living animals, including humans, he feels sickened. Egg is trying to convince Rose not to go to the wizard's tower, but our girl sees no problem since Egg is stronger than the Tower Master. Plus, Prince Sun offers to help now that he has his powers back. The problem is they can't just warp to the tower without the mages discovering them, and Egg worries for her safety if they'll get ambushed by numerous mages and chimeras. But look who had a change of heart! James walks in, appearing determined to help them, but first he's ready to confess. So proud of you, James. Caius believes James has finally returned because he has already retrieved the visions of how Egg created his golems. What could be better than meeting one's creator, right? As a result of James's ability, Egg, Rose, and Sun materialize before him. Caius is putting up his defenses now that he knows James is on their side. And just as he's about to inform him that James is his spy, Egg cuts him off to tell Caius that he's always known what James was up to. And that's not why they've come. Rose wants to get revenge on him for what he and the Baron did to the innocent people, her heavenly knight and the elves. She thinks the mastermind behind these experiments is the Emperor, but Caius warns her not to talk about it so lightly when she doesn't have any proof. You say proof, but our girl doesn't need it because she will be the one to punish them. She also plans to make Caius talk to find out how to save Raymond. Caius just laughs and tells them it is crazy to think that such a small territory as White would try to rebel against the Empire, telling them they'll all die in his hands anyways. Mages and all his experimented creatures start to surround them, but he's willing to let Rose go if Egg gives him his golem creation vision, which makes our girl upset since she can't believe this bald guy is underestimating her mage. Before confronting Caius, Egg makes sure Rose is safe with Prince Sun protecting her. He then begins to tell Caius that he's willing to give his golem creation vision, but it would still be useless since only he can use it. Because golems are created from Egg's memories, he then mocks Caius that an ordinary person like him will be unable to use the visions. This enrages Caius, and everyone on his side launches a powerful attack on him. A flash of light filled the area, Prince Sun covering Rose with his magic shield, while Caius cheered, assuming that the attack had been successful, screaming that he is now the most powerful magician in the human world. But he is surprised when Egg seems to be unscratched. The tower begins to rumble as if the stones are all protecting Egg. That is because he is the true master of the tower, and he begins to interact with the tower itself, calling it by its name, Jen, that he has returned. Time has no effect on our poor guy Yggdrasil, and he retains vivid memories of both his past sorrows and present joys. A dragon once taught him that a normal person's mind has two boxes: the box of memories, which helps people remember things, and the box of recollection, which fades away over time. Egg, however, does not have any such boxes, so the majestic dragon blesses him with the means to create his own, and that is through creating golems. Jen, his first golem, and those cutie golems back home are also pieces of his memories. He created Jen, a pure white tower, 1,000 years ago, and has been tirelessly waiting for Egg's return ever since, until he got tainted with darkness. Now that Egg has returned, Jen finally vents his resentment, causing the whole place to collapse. Egg cannot risk Rose's life. He carries her, and they quickly leave the tower before Jen begins crushing everyone within. Jen is releasing everything inside the tower, including the black goo Caius has been researching. The reason Egg never gave names to Rose's adorable golems was because, if given a name, a golem can develop a free will to create a connection to its owner, but it also gains the ability to feel hatred. The thought of Egg abandoning a golem with feelings only makes Rose more upset, so she pinches his cute face and scolds him. To be fair, he never expected it to wait for him. He put too many memories into Jen, which is why it is so powerful, and if he brings it back to White, the Emperor would undoubtedly notice, putting the people of White in danger. Rose understands him, but it is still wrong, so she asks him to talk to Jen, to which our guy agrees. Ig talks to Jen and reveals that the reason he put a lot of memories into him isn't to make him the strongest golem, but to fill him with the memories he wishes to forget. Ig looks really sorry that he abandoned Jen and begs for forgiveness, promising not to do it again. The tower's love for him overpowers his animosity for Ig, and after he lets go of his anger, Jen transforms into the old White Tower. Prince Sun uses his magic to force Caius to reveal what he injected into humans and elves. Caius is forced to speak and admits that he desired a chimera with high intellect, hence his need for Ig golem vision. But because animals lacked high intelligence, he injected the chimera component into humans and elves but failed. Rose tells him there's one survivor and they want to revert him, but Caius doesn't know how he survived and says it's over once the body turns into a chimera. Prince Sun squeezes his neck harder while Caius trembles, saying that they would obtain nothing from him even if they kill him. After seeing Prince Sun really plan to kill Caius, Rose convinces the prince that his magic has been purified and they should just let God punish the Wizard Tower Master, so he is released. Ig tells them that he's confident they can restore Raymond to normal if everyone pitches in. This makes her happy, and she decides to head home together, wondering how they'll transport the tower. Not to worry, Ig gives Jen coordinates to use its magic, and presto, they're in the White Territory, much to Rose's astonishment and her high admiration for Jen. She soon asks Jen if she loves the place, and Jen expresses her delight by saying that the place is white and pretty like her. Then, Rose formally welcomes Jen to the White community. We have different races now, so why not add a talking tower, right? Ig and Rose are having a nice conversation when Rose realizes that there is so much about him that she doesn't know. She wonders if he's been lonely living life for so long, and our guy, being a sweet liar, tells her that he has forgotten about the past and is now not lonely because he has Rose and White. She's worried about him and lets him promise that he will never again keep secrets from her. The warmth of Rose's smile as she speaks with Ig is making Sun feel gloomy. Poor guy. Meanwhile, Caius is convincing himself that he can restart his experiment by borrowing the Emperor's power when a man appears and ends his life. The man mentions the name of Yggdrasil and Lord White and states that they are interfering in matters outside their land, and that if they refuse to stay quiet in White, he will have no choice but to make his move. The Emperor is enraged at Caius' disappearance, so he dispatches an entire army to the Wizard Tower, only to discover that the entire tower has vanished. Well, Your Majesty, the tower you're looking for is actually outside the walls of White. Ig purposely places it outside to indicate that it doesn't belong to White and opens its doors to those mages who want to come back. He still hasn't completely forgiven James for spying on them, but he will as soon as he recovers his memories of the future. Since Caius is gone, the post of Tower Master is open, but only those with 6th Circle status or higher can fill it. Ig has no intention of ever taking the role himself and instead aims to train James for it. Snow has taken a job teaching kids about dragon magic, and she couldn't be happier. With the arrival of new residents of various races, White has become more vibrant than ever before, much to the concern of Snow and Edie. They doubt the White's present army is strong enough to deal with potential threats, so these two lovely dragons are planning something to help Rose. Speaking of Rose, she's been grumpier and stressed lately managing White, but Arthur is certain that's not the only reason. Our girl misses Ig. Expanding and making their territory rich is her dream, but she doesn't want to become so busy that she has no time to see Ig. Then her thoughts get cut off when Sun enters her office, reporting that he has completed the task she gave him. After his father gave him orders to go explore White and take care of the elves who had relocated there, he used his wind power to become Rose's business messenger. After that, he talks about Dandelion's prophecy that a saintess will come to the world to alter its course, and that anyone who opposes her will be punished. Rose already knows about it, but what's new to her is that there are currently many claiming to be the said prophesied saintess. The fertile territory beneath the White Mountains is known as Asta, and the Emperor has purposefully handed it to the traitor who betrayed the White King. It is to bring further humiliation to the White's king, and ever since then, Asta's nobles have mocked the White for being poor. There are many ladies claiming to be the promised saintess, but the most prominent is the noble from Asta. Rose is relieved to hear that the traitor's descendants are doing good deeds. She walks inside Edie's office and is taken aback by the sight of a handsome man. Okay, not a man, but a gorgeous dragon named Shasta, Edie's husband. After Snow's husband, Aethel, introduces himself as well and expresses gratitude, the four of them begin discussing business. Edie shares her concern for the White's safety and advises making the two beautiful dragons, Shasta and Aethel, the White's elite guards now that they have finished their duty and will be staying with them. They consider White their home now, so they are more than happy to help her in any way they can. Sun interrupts her happy thoughts yet again, this time to alert her that outsiders are trying to enter their area. She sees a young child crying for help and learns that they are from Asta. Sun reports that the so-called Saintess of Asta has been spending more money on charities, leading taxes to soar merely to cover her expenses. Ordinary people are having difficulty paying and begin fighting over the gold coins she tosses. They take a chance on making it to White, where they hope that rumors of a safe haven are real, and Rose begins to worry that there may be others trying to reach them that they haven't located yet. While she regrets what happened in the past between Asta and White, she no longer has any resentment toward them, and this Saintess-crazed woman is definitely getting under her skin. People are cheering outside of North Central Temple of Dandelion, and if this fake Saintess feels she is the promised one, she should think again because our girl is here to disrupt whatever bogus ritual the Saintess of Asta is performing. The Saintess rite takes place to determine whether or not a lady claiming to be the one is real. However, because these ceremonies are extremely expensive, whoever is able to pay is usually chosen to perform the ritual. Rose wants to meet the lady in secret, but Ig, who promises to support her, advises that she should openly go there as the monarch of White. Ig isn't too happy when Sun decides to join them, but their starting battle is quickly interrupted as Rose, magnificent in her white gown and crown, appears. Sun blushes and freezes at the sight of her, while Ig compliments her. Back to the present, the priests are yelling at Rose for entering the temple and ruining the ritual. But our girl simply walks past them and sits at the throne with the prince and the greatest mage beside her. All hail the queen, yes! Since only kings and bishops are permitted to sit on the throne, they insist that she vacate it immediately. Unfortunately for them, White is an independent nation and the ruler also serves as its bishop. This makes Rose both White's monarch and bishop. Rose then tells of a king who stupidly gave money to the needy rather than helping them work, causing his treasury to swiftly empty. Just like what's happening to Asta now, the king increases the taxes and the people riot. By the time the king realizes his mistake, it's too late. The opposing kingdom has taken advantage of the opportunity of the chaos to launch an attack. This is the story of the former King of White, and even with Yggdrasil helping him, they got defeated since the King of White surrendered when he realized the war was costing him the lives of his people. Rose wants this to become an eye-opener for the lady, but she doesn't even care that the Austin people are dying in the White Mountains trying to escape their place. In the end, Rose resolves to let God decide which of them is the true Saintess. The two begin their prayer, and not long after, a lightning bolt strikes the temple, hitting the fake and the priests. Our girl just keeps barbecuing everyone! Meanwhile, the Emperor pays a visit to the garden where Baron Florence perished since no one dared to aid him because of reports that a Saintess utilized divine punishment of cursed and never-ending lightning bolts. Prince Sun is startled as he observes Rose's great divine power, while Ig is confiscating the money that compels Rose to join him. These two, really? Prince Sun then advises them to leave before more people arrive. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor is skeptical that a Saintess actually existed and believes the Pope made up the whole thing. The people submit to the Pope's authority, yet they turn to him when confronted with actual threats. That is why he's furious that the Chimera experiment failed. Prince Adrian interrupts him by saying that both Baron Florence and Caius were not competent enough, which caused harm to him and the Empire, and he thinks it's better they're gone. His comment only enrages the Emperor, since with those two gone, he doesn't have any weapons to fight against the Pope. Before leaving, he orders the prince to investigate the Saintess, just in time for Crown Prince Urien to arrive and wonder why their father is upset. Adrian explains that the prophesied Saintess appeared, and he's been ordered to investigate the situation. He then asks Urien to join him, but he brags that a Crown Prince does not need to get involved, and Adrian smiles, telling him he will take care of it. Meanwhile, in the Taeheat Temple, Tina reports that the ritual has been stopped, and the Aston Lady has stopped all of her activities, which saddens Pope Lilian since the lady is giving so many donations. She then learns that Rose White and Yggdrasil were the ones who interfered, and she assumes that the lightning was caused by Yggdrasil. The Pope becomes intrigued and orders Tina to arrange a meeting with Yggdrasil. James, on the other hand, is trying his best to hone his skills with Jen, but keeps falling short. Ig, also baffled, tells him that his current mage level is just 5th circle. Even the kids who are being personally instructed by Snow are shocked to see his little progress. This causes James to break down in tears since the White's children are already using 3rd circle magic. Oh, just imagine the generation to come. Prince Sun, who used to despise humanity, has suddenly fallen completely in love with Rose and begins dreaming about her when his buddy Life discovers his expression and thinks he's in love. Sun tries to deny it, but eventually asks him how to recognize love, and his friend gleefully shares that everything will shine around the person he loves. Speaking of the person he loves, Rose is now in Edie's office discussing James's rigid training with Jen. Rose thinks that it would be easiest for James to inherit Ig's power and escape all the trouble, but Edie tells her that James can't do that since his body can't handle that much magic. Magic originally belonged to the dragons, and they formerly had a peaceful relationship with humans. But after continuous conflict, the dragons killed all the original mages who inherited their power, except for one human, Yggdrasil, who fought alongside them. To tease our girl, Edie shares that after Ig sent messages to the mages to return to the tower, he received a slew of gifts, the majority of which were from Tina, the famous beauty mage with jet black hair. And she adds that Ig is apparently close with the female wizard, so maybe he has a thing for black-haired women. While Rose storms off in a huff, Edie smiles and seems to be having a good time with what she started. Such a sly dragon! Sun is sharing his heart troubles with the flowers when he sees Rose, and suddenly everything starts to sparkle. Obviously, our guy's heart stops beating for a while there when Rose approaches him and asks for a favor. Since elves can use illusions, she wonders if he can make her hair black, and without asking why, Sun heeds her request. When he kisses Rose's hair, she blushes, and her hair begins to darken to a sleek black that really complements her skin tone. She promises to serve him tea when she comes back, and off she goes to see Ig. Now that he's alone, he feels uneasy after using magic on Rose. On her way to the tower, Rose wonders if Ig will still find her silver hair beautiful or will prefer her new hair. Ig begins to perspire upon seeing Rose's new look, and he immediately feels guilty for being too preoccupied to notice her teenaged angst. When Rose was still a young child, her father was always busy with work, so she had no one to talk to. But that changes when a cheerful Ig finally returns to White after a mission. She always loves it when Ig responds every time she calls his name. Ig doesn't know how to react to her new hair, while Rose uses the chance to ask him if he finds her black hair pretty. He doesn't respond and simply touches her hair, turning it back to silver, stating that while black is lovely, silver suits her best. You would think it's sweet, but all our girl heard was Ig saying black hair is pretty, which has her overthinking. When he finds out that Prince Sun placed the magic on her hair, he starts getting furious since the illusion vanishes when the caster is away. And the fact that the spell was still there indicates that Sun must have used physical touch to create the spell. He vents his rage on James, making his training more difficult. Rose and Ig are watching James train, and she has no idea as to why he uses so many words to do his magic. Human magic makes spells by uttering them, whereas dragon magic creates them by visualizing them in their heads. Thus, James is doing his best to match Ig's dragon magic with his human magic, which is extremely tough. Now that she understands why Ig is so preoccupied in the tower, she brings up the subject of the lovely black-haired mage, whom she believes is his type. Ig has no idea what she's talking about, so she grabs him closer to remind him of their promise to marry each other. He doesn't want it to become serious, so he just jokes about it, saying she's like a child telling her dad to live with her forever, and will probably regret it in 5 years. Rose screams to inform him that she never sees him as a parent and starts crying before running away. Back in the mansion, Sun looks so cute waiting for Rose for their tea together when he sees her arrive crying. She goes to her room and can't believe Ig disregards her feelings. She hugs her golem, eventually coming to terms with the possibility that what Ig feels for her isn't love. Margaret finds Rose having a cold and quickly contacts Ig about it. More like lovesick. After Ig receives a report, he rushes to see her but gets quickly kicked out by Rose. He's now sulking outside, feeling horrible for making her cry again, and he remembers when she was a tiny crybaby. Rose was crying at the time because she assumed he was in love with her aunt, which is why they were leaving together, but she calmed down after Ig explained that he was only taking her aunt to another place so she could get married. When she learns that being married means loving someone else forever, she becomes fixated on the idea of marrying Ig. Subtly, he smiles, knowing that Rose looked up to him for comfort and support since her father was busy. He felt terrible about rejecting a lonely kid, so they promised to get married if she still wanted to after she grew up. Ig then enters her room again, and seeing that she's asleep, he apologizes, still wondering if she actually remembers their old promise to marry. He wishes her to find true love, not like him, who's frozen in time, but he doesn't like just anyone. He wants her to marry someone better than him. When he goes out, he gets confronted by Sun, who's apparently upset about something. It looks like the uneasy feeling he felt after casting a spell on Rose was Ig's magic within her. He's frantic to know if Rose is aware that she's trapped in Ig's magic, forcing her to live for eternity. Ig gets serious and explains that Rose doesn't need to know, since when she no longer needs him, he will vanish with the curse. What in the plot twist is this? Since Rose, the last princess of White, received divine power, her body can't contain it and is eating her life. So Ig was the one who stopped her from dying early. In fulfilling the terms of the Mage and Lord pact they had sealed, Ig promises to protect her and everyone she loves while fusing his magic with Rose's divine power. Sun is so puzzled, but since he already knows about Rose's condition, Ig explains everything. Rose won't be able to withstand her own divine power, so he linked his magic to her so she can endure it. But he never plans to make Rose live forever. When the time comes, he will remove her divine power connected with his magic, so Rose will live as a regular human while he disappears, as his magic is his source of life. The truth has left Sun in disbelief, and he cannot imagine Rose's pain when it finally happens. Prince Sun and Rose are finally having their promised tea together, and since elves live longer than humans, Rose is curious if they ever considered humans as romantic partners. Sun blushes and remembers his previous conversation with Ig, who said that he's only sacrificing his life for Rose since he made a promise to her father. Plus, he's already tired of his long life and nothing more. Sun can really tell Ig is avoiding the love part, so he plans to use this chance to make Rose love him instead. The elf prince then gives a resolute response to Rose's question, vowing that he will make the most of his time with a human if he ever falls in love with one, regardless of how brief that time may be, and despite the certainty of being left alone in the end. That's a low-key confession. Sun's words, however, have only fueled our girl's resolve to pursue Ig. In 2 years, she will be of legal age, so he will stop treating her like a kid. And when that time comes, she is determined to become an amazing woman. After that, she decides to make amends with him and visit him on the tower. Meanwhile, Tina, the girl she envies, is actually already in the tower with Ig, delivering Pope Lillian's invitation. Jen greets Rose warmly upon her arrival at the tower and leads her to Ig's office after she encounters a dejected James who feels unworthy of the position as Tower Master. He then informs Rose that Ig is chatting with his guest, a former member of the Wizard's Tower named Tina, inside his office and on to gush about how stunning Tina is. Knowing there are only the two of them inside upsets Rose, and she rushes to the room, seeing them in an awkward position. Tina squeezes Ig's face and turns it to the opposite side before approaching Rose, while our girl can't deny Tina's beauty now that she's seen her in person. The ladies introduce themselves, and Rose remarks on how close she appears to be to Ig. Tina quickly draws near to Ig and jokes that they indeed have a unique connection, causing Ig to freak out. He's so worried about being misunderstood that he's in full-on panic mode as he tries to reassure Rose that they're just friends, while Tina laughs at his red face and drained, adorable expression. So to explain, Tina is one of his few remaining human friends, and while she cannot compare to Ig, she is a formidable mage who is also older than she appears. Tina senses Rose's jealousy and moves in closer to reassure her that she has nothing to worry about in her relationship with Ig, while also giving her a good luck whisper, which causes Rose's face to flush. Then, Tina claims she came on Pope Lillian's behalf to invite Yggdrasil to the temple, but Rose argues that she needn't have made the trip in person since she could have simply sent a message, and she wonders if it's an urgent matter. Tina doesn't have an explanation since she's simply doing what she's been ordered to do, but she does warn them that there may be consequences if they disregard the Pope's invitation. Meanwhile, a commoner has reported to Crown Prince Urien in the Imperial Palace that he saw a beast in the cave of the White Mountains that resembles a dragon. He also has a scale that came from that cave, which is making him wonder how the people of the White Mountains have managed to live in peace if a dragon is indeed there. Prince Urian is intrigued and offers him an enormous sum of money to lead him to the cave. At the same time, Prince Adrian decides to visit White to see if the rumors that the last descendant of White is a saintess are true. Prince Adrian is currently viewing Florence, which has been rather bustling and lively since the rose merchants began trading with them. Thanks to this, the country is striving and the people are grateful for the saintess, making the prince surprised since he can't believe White is wealthy enough to run a trading business. White used to solely survive via tourism and tax collection, yet now they are financially independent without receiving any help from the Empire. He then decides to go to White without any knights to make his visit less suspicious. As Rose sits in her room, brooding about the fact that Ig will be traveling somewhere far away she doesn't know, the man who's been invading her thoughts walks in and tells her that Tina has already left. He then informs her that he's planning to accept the Pope's invitation, which she expects since she's sure he can't refuse Tina's request. However, to her surprise, his reason for going isn't because of his friend or because he's afraid of the Pope, but because of Raymond, who still hasn't recovered his human body. He explains that there's a rumored holy water at the Taehi temple that can cure any illness, so in exchange for accepting the invitation, he requested to have Raymond treated by the Pope. Then he kisses the back of her hand to ask for her permission to carry out his commitment to protect everyone she cares about. Rose can't believe she's been grumpy when Ig is constantly prioritizing her in White. This teaches her to put her duties as White's monarch ahead of her feelings, so she lets Ig go with a resolute heart. Meanwhile, somewhere in the White Mountains, some men are on a mission to hunt the baby dragon they saw in a cave and plan to capture it using a restraint collar, so its mother will be forced to obey their commands. These guys have a death wish. The emperor who banished the King of White long ago marvels at how easily he gave up his throne like it was nothing when he worked so hard to get his, which made him so mad that he exiled the king to the wasteland. Then things changed over time, and his proud empire is being ruled by a weak emperor, whereas White is unexpectedly striving. Adrian thinks the empire should finally be taken down with the useless emperor as its last ruler. He's not sure whether it's a blessing or a curse, yet he keeps reincarnating in this world. You guys want to know who he really is? Adrian is none other than the emperor who hated the king of White. He's now hiking his way to White when Knocker comes across him and figures he's lost like the others. And Knocker, being Knocker, takes him to Jen to assist him in warping to a nearby village. Meanwhile, Snow and Aphil are adoring their cute little baby, Ina, who's been growing well since they arrived in White. Then Snow realizes she neglected to lock up their cave, so they plan to seal it together so no humans can enter while they're having a family picnic with Red. They are now on their way out when they come across Rose and Ig and share they'll be away for a while to seal their cave. The kids really like Rose and even invite her to come with them. Cuties. I just hope nothing bad happens. James is still working hard and trains with Jen, who stops for a bit to inform him there's an intruder nearby. Adrian and Knocker have arrived outside White and are on their way to Jen, but the prince can't help but stare at its walls, recalling his promise to Ig in exchange for the exile that he and his successors would never enter White without permission. When suddenly, the castle wall starts moving and Ig appears to make the prince pay for breaking his promise. Gosh, the walls are also golems! Of course, Adrian is no match for these massive wall golems, but as an experienced swordsman, he is able to avoid some of their strikes. Then James arrives after hearing the commotion and scolds Knocker for picking yet another man who is causing them problems. The golem has finally clutched Adrian, and when James looks at him, he recognizes him from the future he comes from, the Empire's second prince, whom he saw sitting but seemingly dead on a crumbling throne. He hurriedly yells and asks the golem not to harm the prince, when a serious Ig shows up asking James for a reason not to kill the prince. Ig orders the golem to let the prince go and let James know that White's walls only react when an old enemy of White shows up, which means Adrian is an enemy. Ig approaches the prince and addresses him as His Highness, which amazes Adrian, who wonders how Ig knows it's him. Ig grabs him by the collar as he looks him in the eyes, feeling sorry for him to get reincarnated with the same face and in the same empire. Ig is becoming serious now. He throws Adrian a solid punch to the stomach, making the poor guy kneel in pain. And because he broke the promise, Ig now has his neck in his hands and is ready to use his magic to kill him when Adrian stabs him in the heart first. Rose has seen a dagger stabbed into his heart, making her scream Ig's name. However, she is also witnessing Ig casually removing the dagger from his chest. With a sly grin on his face, Ig kicks Adrian square in the face, knocking him to the ground. As he reminds him of their promise, he keeps stomping on him and gets more and more brutal each time, making everyone uncomfortable. Arthur then sees Rose's reaction, so he calls out Ig, and that's when Ig notices Rose trembling, her eyes crying and full of fear. James musters the courage to defend the prince, quickly heals him, and informs Ig that the second prince should be the next emperor since it is the reason he returned to the past. The revelations keep pouring in. In the future, where James is from, Prince Adrian was against the plan of creating chimeras by using dragon hatchlings. He urges his father to put an end to Caius' experiment and tries to warn them that dragons are divine beings with the potential to bring down the empire if they underestimate them. The emperor laughs at him since it looks like this time they have already captured the dragons and are already following the emperor's orders. And even the crown prince encourages Adrian not to be a coward. This is why James wants him to be the future emperor, and with him on the throne, they may likely be able to prevent the future he saw. Ig looks at him disappointed, since they're already living a different version of reality, given that they have already gotten rid of Caius. James continues to try to persuade Ig, claiming that some of Caius' pupils may still make chimeras in the future, and that he should reconsider for the sake of the innocent people and dragons living in white. He pleads with Ig and Rose to trust him just this once, and this time Rose speaks up, ordering the prince to be moved inside. She plans to know who the prince really is, plus she's concerned about the future of the dragons she cares about. Ig sighs since he can't oppose Rose's decision, but warns James to do a good job watching the prince, then congratulates him for reaching the 6th circle. James doesn't understand, so Ig tries to make him remember that the moment he healed the prince without casting, he completed his training. He is now the master of the Wizard's Tower, and Ig asks him to take good care of Jen. Finally, all of his hard work is paid off. Adrian is being held in a cell with James as his watch until Rose is ready to see him. James made it clear that he only saves him because he doesn't want to experience the hellish future again, and wants to prevent the kind-hearted dragons of white from losing their insanity. Now that the prince knows dragons do live in white, James wants to confirm if he is willing to prevent the future he saw. Adrian believes that if the reason James returns from the future is to save him, then his reason to be reincarnated is to stop the future he saw. He promises to stop those who are ruining the empire he built. It looks like he's not half bad. Meanwhile, Ig is restoring the walls at the expense of his cherished memories of the people he outlived. When he finishes the repair, he sees Rose waiting for him, who quickly grabs him to her room to undress him, but is surprised to see no wound at his chest at all. While Ig makes jokes to lighten the mood, Rose breaks down in tears, terrified that she may lose him. Ig apologizes and covers her with his hug. For Ig, he believes that one should not love, so the goodbye wouldn't be sad. Is he warning Rose not to love him, or is he warning himself not to fall in love? Possibly both. If what James saw in the future is true, Rose ought to alert her dragon allies so they can take precautions and protect their hatchlings. But since Snow and Aethel haven't come back yet, Rose informs Edie of the situation and then asks for a favor. Meanwhile, Ig is bringing Prince Adrian to the White's castle, and as you all know, these two were terrible enemies in the past, so they began to clash with Ig, underlining that the war had caused so much suffering that he can't forget or forgive him. Suddenly, they hear a rumbling noise, and to their utter shock, Rose rides in on our extremely majestic golden dragon, Edie. This is Rose displaying her might and scaring the prince that White isn't just a small territory but rather a formidable kingdom. The sight of Rose in the company of Edie and Shasta causes Adrian to sweat heavily, and so they all enter the palace to get the prince's confession. Prince Adrian, or should I say the first emperor, is kneeling before Rose. Sorry, Lord Rose, formally addressing her now because her very presence bestows such authority. Love it. The prince then explains that he is not interested to cause trouble and has merely arrived in their land by chance while investigating the rumored saintess, and that he had no idea dragons even existed before today. When considering how to punish him, Ig whispers a suggestion to her, and it seems like Lord Rose is liking it as she smirks sinisterly, causing the prince to bring up Lord Rose to keep her word and not kill him. Well, she did save him from Ig, so now is a different situation. As the descendant of White and of course Ig, who dislikes him, these two have a long history of grudges against the prince. They grin as they declare that the prince is deserving of punishment for breaking his promise to never set foot in the White Kingdom, giving Prince Adrian the chills. so he tries to persuade them that he did nothing wrong and that it was his past life that caused the problem. However, Lord Rose's dominant gaze tells him that White has never forgotten how their people endured as a result of him. Now she's ordering him to become emperor to stop his father and brother from carrying out their disastrous plans, and to spend the rest of his life atoning for his wrongdoing toward White. And if he doesn't keep his end of the bargain, Lord Rose threatens him that she might as well declare herself emperor. Since the prince acknowledges the power she holds, he accepts her terms. However, this is only the beginning of his punishment, as Lord Rose then commands Yeeg to drain the prince of all his mana as retribution for his trespass, and to ensure that he will never cause further chaos. Our sly lord here chuckles, promising to return his mana someday if he'll perform a good job. They intend to release him now, before an enraged Snow and Aphel arrive, and Snow begins releasing her strength, demanding the prince to give her baby back. Earlier, as Snow and Aphel were sealing their cave, the cute babies wandered too far from them as they searched for Toothy, Red's golem, and got captured by Imperial soldiers. Back to the present, Edie is trying to keep Snow under control when she breaks down in tears and tells them they can't find Red and Ina since they've lost their scent. When Aphel takes Prince Adrian by the neck, believing he is involved in the abduction, Adrian finally understands that his father and the Crown Prince are responsible, just as James had warned. As the prince struggles to free himself from Aphel's grasp, he tries to convince him that he can help locate the children. Aphel, however, isn't convinced and would rather let the whole empire suffer. As the situation worsens, Rose steps in and proposes a plan to save the children without harming innocent people. Poor Red and Ina are imprisoned in the Imperial Palace, and the reason Snow fails to detect their scent is because their powers have been blocked by the necklace they had them wear. The Emperor and Crown Prince's celebration, however, is short-lived when Prince Adrian, with his hands tied, arrives with Snow and Aphel. Since they are in their human forms, the Emperor has no idea what children Snow and Adrian are referring to when she threatens to kill Adrian unless he returns their children to them. Then Aphel reveals his actual form, alarming the soldiers and apparently stunning the Crown Prince. This should be enough to intimidate the Emperor, but instead, this man threatens them, confident that only he can reveal the location of the babies. Since the dragons can't sense their children, the Emperor believes he has the upper hand, and so he commands the dragons to submit if they want to see their babies. Snow appears to have had enough of him, so she delivers the final warning that the entire empire will be burned to the ground if their children aren't returned immediately. They dare mess with Mama Snow! Back in the White Kingdom, Rose is fretting nonstop about sending Snow and Aphel on their own. But getting the White involved would just make everything more complicated, so they have little choice but to rely on Adrian to fulfill his part. Prince Adrian begins an angry tirade to his father about how strong their kingdom already is, but the Emperor is fixated on expanding his reign's authority to the point where no one would dare to become an enemy. What an utter moron of an emperor to think that he can abduct the dragonlings without paying the wrath of the dragons! Adrian looks so fed up with his father, causing the Emperor to lose his cool in anger and strip him of his title, as if he ever intended to offer Adrian the throne. The Emperor then acts stupidly by sending his troops to battle the dragons. Like, really? With his regal figure towering over the palace, Aphel begins to discharge such a torrent of firepower that everyone begins fleeing in terror. In the midst of the chaos, Prince Adrian confronts the frightened Crown Prince and demands to know where the hatchlings are, or else the entire empire will be reduced to ruins at the hands of the dragons. Meanwhile, as the Emperor lies helpless beneath the rubble, Snow approaches him without remorse to ask once more about the whereabouts of the babies. But before she can do anything to the Emperor, Adrian and the Crown Prince arrive, carrying both Ina and Red. Snow, whose anxiousness has been eased, sobs and reaches out to embrace the little ones. It's good to see her happy face again. Aphel ceases his attacks as promised, but it doesn't stop him from executing the Emperor and Crown Prince right in front of Adrian. The Crown Prince screams for help, but they perish in Aphel's blaze before Adrian can respond. That was quick. But what did they expect when they provoked a higher being, right? So, as planned, Prince Adrian is now the new emperor, recognized for saving the kingdom from dragons and entrusted with rebuilding the empire from the ground up. The dragons have returned to the White Kingdom, but Snow is still concerned about whether living with humans is the correct decision, especially since it has put their babies' lives in danger. Then, Aphel gives her a hug and reassures her that they made the right choice. It's only that not every human would be as nice as the people of White. Yes, we do not tolerate racism in any form. Rose is now in Edie's office, where she is being driven to broaden her influence and bridge the human and non-human worlds, especially now that the Emperor himself is indebted to them. Rose's ambition for power almost takes her over, which makes Edie giggle. So instead of staying still, Rose wanders around trying to remind herself that her goal is to live peacefully in her own small domain. With the amazing mages, dragons, dwarves, elves, and her hard-working humans, she passes upon Raymond's house and decides to peek inside, only to be surprised when Raymond, who appears to be in better health, appears. He then offers her a cup of hot tea and begins to tell her how, thanks to his divine powers and the help of elven blood, he is able to live without entirely turning into an undead. He's somewhere in the middle, making him Caius's lone successful chimera experiment. Well, not gonna lie, he looks fine though. Rose, on the other hand, recognizes that this isn't something they should celebrate, causing Raymond to smile so little that he learns to accept his fate. After that, he picks up a knife and tries to stab himself in the arm, only to find that his body is as tough as steel, making him no longer human. But thanks to Yeeg, Raymond will be heading to the Taehi Temple to get help becoming human again. But Rose is concerned because it is a temple, it may be dangerous to send him alone knowing he has been influenced by dark magic. So Rose decides to test her divine powers on him, taking Raymond's hands in hers and beginning to pray to Dandelion. Yet her power is rejected after a while, and it appears that she has no choice but to let him go to Taehi. The next day, Raymond formally bids his goodbye to Lord Rose, promising to return healthier to White. After what seems like ages, Rose begins to worry that Raymond won't return in time for the demon hunt. Every winter, demonic beasts invade the entire continent, and because mountains surround their kingdom, it is most at risk. Without Raymond, Arthur would have to lead their forces alone. But nothing to worry, actually, since we have Shasta, who is eager to train the White Youth Group in his dragon form. However, Edie reminds Rose that something more important will keep the White busy before the demon hunt, and that is Rose's birthday. Knocker has prepared a stunning piece of jewelry, while Sun prepares a fruit. Not just any fruit, but one from a world tree that bears just once every century. But Sun feels it's too little, given how the dragons are rumored to bestow an entire land beyond the mountains onto Rose. While everyone else is discussing their expensive presents, these adorable golems are fretting over what to get Rose. Whereas in years past they might have baked her a cake, this year they've opted to give her a pet instead. Cuties. Rose and Eeg are out on a stroll across town to observe the celebratory mood. When she starts getting pouty, as Eeg won't tell what his gift is, they find the joyous golems marching towards her and gifting her the cute black fox. They even tied a ribbon around it. But before Rose can pet the fox, Eeg grabs it and reveals to her that it is a demon. Unfortunately, when animals are murdered unjustly, they are at times resurrected as demonic beasts. Thankfully, Eeg carries a small vial of holy water which restores the black fox's original white fur. Rose doesn't forget to thank the golems for their present and promises to raise the fox well, making them very happy. Then, Rose begins to worry about how Raymond is being taken care of at Taehi, and she finds out that a full bath of holy water is required for Raymond's healing. During their discussion, Eeg proposes to Rose that he personally retrieve Raymond from Taehi. Since Raymond's arrival at Taehi, they haven't heard from him, and Eeg suspects the Pope wants him to go get him. Rose is wary at first, but she eventually accepts and lets Eeg go. Meanwhile, Pope Lillian is growing impatient as he waits for Eeg to arrive at the Taehi Temple. And it appears that Eeg is correct. They're holding Raymond captive. So while she waits, Pope Lillian prepares to do her duty and perform her ritual in the chapel. She is revered as the saintess of miracles, but no one knows that she comes from a tragic background. She is an orphan, and at the age of 10, the Dandelion religious order took her in after discovering her divine powers. However, the bishops are corrupt, and so they began training her as a saintess by putting her in a dark chamber and forcing her to pray until Dandelion hears her. She begs and cries, but no one opens the door for her. So all she does is immerse herself in holy water till she can't sleep or feel hungry any longer. Eventually, her divine power does awaken, and she becomes so powerful that she can change mud into holy water and gain the adoration of all the people. After the corrupt bishops died out of old age, she succeeded them as Pope and has been living in the body of an 18-year-old for over 2 centuries. Don't Dandelion's chosen ones perish young? Something smells fishy. Pope Lillian then enters the chapel with Tina guarding her from the outside, and just as expected, she has been seriously tainted because the holy water is all black. Her prayers are just as corrupted. She claims ownership of the world and is beloved among people, so she commands Dandelion to respect her authority and keep quiet as always. Eeg arrives in Taehi by warp, but a few soldiers seize him and accuse him of trespassing. Yig isn't in the mood, so he shows them the invitation letter he received from the Pope herself and bullies the soldiers a little, forcing them to bow down to him. Tina then arrives and takes him to the Pope, but Yig insists on seeing Raymond first, which she agrees to. Yig walks into a room where Raymond appears to be acting strangely, so he approaches him, and the look in Raymond's eyes tells Yig that he is clearly possessed. Tea is brought to them, but Yig keeps his attention on Raymond and wonders why the priests aren't doing anything about the demonic energy in the temple. His statement receives a chuckle from Raymond, confirming Yig's suspicion that a demon is indeed inside him. Yig then learns that the demon enters Raymond's body willingly since the Pope refused to purify it, and that the priests are aware of his presence but don't care since the holy water in Taehi has gone bad. He even goes so far as to say that the Pope herself has to be cleansed, leaving Yig so confused that the demon is happy to drop a hint that God has abandoned the Holy Land and the demons have moved in. This demon then leans forward to Yig and challenges him for a battle. But our guy here has no interest in engaging a lowly demon who needs a human host in order to survive. Yig then asks him whether he's ever heard of Mad Dog, which instantly frightens the demon because Mad Dog is the one who defeated their demon lord Lucifer. Just who, in your opinion, is this Mad Dog? Yes, it's Yig himself. Then Yig leans up close to the demon and threatens to wipe out the underworld if he doesn't stop bothering him. And just like that, the devil trembles in terror and flees from Raymond's body. Shortly after that, Pope Lillian shows up to finally welcome Yig. Yig wastes no time in questioning the Pope about why she hasn't purified Raymond, despite the fact that their agreement states that he will meet with her only if she guarantees to heal Raymond. The Pope, however, has a way with words and claims that wasting holy water on Raymond's ruined flesh is a waste in general. And she thinks that Raymond, a divine knight, would agree that the water is better put to use helping others in need. Then she adds that she will ensure Raymond's soul reaches Dandelion. In short, she intends to neglect Raymond until he dies. Now that it's evident they won't get any help from the Pope, Yig asks her why she wanted to meet him in the first place. The Pope approaches Yig and offers that he work with her, as his potential is being wasted in white, after which she caresses Yig's face and promises to give him anything he desires. Gosh, for a holy lady, she's pretty flirty. Yig instantly withdraws her hand and declines the offer, while the Pope thinks she can win him over by offering him Raymond's purification as a bargain. This only enrages Yig, who leans in towards her and declares that she smells like a rotten corpse. Given that holy water has the ability to regenerate, it's hardly surprising that she's abusing it. As we all know, having divine power shortens a person's lifespan, but Yig has now figured out that the holy water is what keeps the Pope and Tina from aging. The Pope finds this hilarious, since if she's a monster, then Yig must be one as well, since neither of them can age. Well, that just offended Yig, and he makes it apparent that there is something that separates them. He still has humanity in him. All this time, she imagined Yig would sympathize with her long, lonely life. The world may criticize her, but she didn't expect Yig, who also lives a long life, to simply abandon her. I mean, she's artificially extending her life so she could just... Anyway, Yig, who is carrying Raymond, is about to leave the room when the Pope becomes evilly serious and declares that no one can leave without her consent. Yig is unable to cast magic, and he believes the Pope's divine necklace is to blame. These divine items are from long ago and give the person who wears them godlike powers, which makes things more difficult. Yig urges the Pope to release him, as he still needs to attend and celebrate the birthday of the person whose smile means the most to him. However, this only makes the Pope more determined to keep him locked up in the Holy Land, and soon her jewelry begins to glow. Her earrings, which Yig recognizes as the god's teardrop, provide physical protection for the Pope, while the necklace's suppression effect prevents anyone from using magic within the Pope's sight. Because of this, Yig is forced to make use of Raymond. He throws his body through the window to break it, and once he's out of Lillian's line of sight, Yig immediately employs a warp to transport him home. Yig follows suit, making a break for it out the window, but fails after the Pope restores the shattered window. Breaking the window only works for Raymond since he has a steel body, but it doesn't work for Yig, so he just hopes Rose forgives him for being late for her birthday. Back in White, the whole kingdom is starting the celebration, and while Rose is grateful to everyone there, she can't help but think of Yig. Rose then steps outside the terrace as Life encourages Sun to finally give his gift. She seems lonely and just wants Yig to come back when she sees a shooting star. Rose begins to pray for the happiness of the people of White. Grumpy wishes for Dandelion to give White holy water and Ray and Yig's safe return. Sun interrupts Rose, who has just made a wish on the shooting star, a custom he finds amusing. Wishes aren't something elves do, but humans do, given that they are a race with a short lifespan. So they're willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want, even if it means wishing in the unknown. However, she believes that it would be quicker to work things out on oneself rather than waiting endlessly for God to grant their wishes, which makes Sun laugh. Rose then finds it amusing that Sun discovers she is waiting for Yggdrasil, even though she has been trying not to show it. She's uneasy because Ygg never missed any of her birthdays, which makes Sun wonder whether she loves Ygg and frankly cautions her that Ygg is not the right person for her. He gently strokes her hair before the explosion of fireworks interrupt their moment, which Rose interprets as Ygg's gift to her. Rose used to ask for grandiose fireworks for White, but they were so expensive that Ygg would simply ignore her request. She thought he'd forgotten about it, but now she's delighted to know that Ygg always remembers. It's clear that the prince is heartbroken by the realization that Ygg's absence makes no difference. He still can't win, so to end the day, he leans in, wishing Rose a happy birthday, so sudden that it makes her so red. Sun then detects something unusual in the sky and doubts whether it's part of the fireworks or just another shooting star that is going their way. They both race in the light's direction and are astonished to see Raymond lying on the pond. She rushes to Ray and attempts to wake him up, while Sun finds the pond is actually holy water. Rose finds it insane that her wish has been granted, and Sun confirms it by saying the divine creature standing before them is the proof. Rose senses that they had previously met and recalls her name as Elizabeth, and she is relieved to know that she's real. Just thereafter, Raymond awakens and informs her that Ygg is in danger. She becomes frantic and demands that they hurry to him, but Sun attempts to calm her, saying that she is being too hasty. Rose begins to cry. She worries about what will become of Ygg if she doesn't leave right away. And at that moment, the divine creature grows large enough for them to ride on its back. Rose is hesitant to let Raymond go with them, but he insists that there is something that he must do, so they all go together to save Ygg. Ygg is furious with Lillian for trying to keep him there, but she insists on waiting until he chooses to stay with her before disclosing her knowledge of his contract with the Lord of White. Lillian knows that Rose's use of divine power is possible because he's supporting her with magic, so she warns Ygg to give the situation some serious thought, and threatens to use her divine cane to remove his magic, which means Rose's lifespan will be affected as well. Ygg is confused as to why she is acting this way, but he eventually learns the selfish reason, that because he doesn't want her, nobody else is permitted to have him. Lillian continues to assure him that if he stays by her side, she will let him keep his contract with Lord Rose, and then orders him to choose now. Ygg is getting concerned since Rose's life is getting compromised, until he hears Rose's voice shouting his name. In an instant, the group and the divine creature stand before him, with Rose demanding, with authority, that Lillian return her precious mage. Ygg is stressed out by the situation and can't believe Raymond has returned with Rose after he sent him home. Raymond's skin tone appears to have returned to normal, and Ygg wonders how they managed to bring a divine creature with them to the temple. His thoughts are interrupted when Pope Lillian greets Rose and grins, claiming that Ygg has already decided to live with her since the two of them understand one another and can live forever, unlike Rose, who will eventually die. Lillian makes a good point, but Rose doesn't give a hoot and is willing to be labeled selfish if it means keeping Ygg with her. Rose is so head-on that she is unconcerned about the future. Instead, she wants to live in the now, enjoying the company of Ygg and laughing and smiling as much as possible, so when the time comes, they will not have regrets. She then adds that she is willing to let Ygg go if that is what he truly desires, but if Lillian is merely forcing him, it means war. Since Lillian considers herself the true saintess, this news makes her chuckle because she has nothing to fear from Rose. She unleashes her full strength with her divine cane while Ygg screams for Rose to run away. But then our divine knight Raymond is here for his comeback. His sword begins to flash, releasing an immense amount of power, and he reveals that while he was in a coma, he actually spoke with Dandelion. Still, Lillian displays a haughty air about her divine items until Ray splits her cane in half, causing her to scream and alerting the soldiers outside. Prince Sun immediately uses his magic to seal up the entrance, and then he takes advantage of the situation to pull Ygg away from Lillian with his vines. They then see the Pope break down in tears as her divine items begin to dissolve and her body gradually turns black as Raymond delivers Dandelion's message that he will revoke the Pope's authority. The news causes her to tremble since all this time she feels neglected by Dandelion. That is why she makes the choice to extend her life in order to purify the world in his stead. She screams, blaming Dandelion and insisting that he has no right to take away her abilities, when we all know she's been ignoring her duties. Duh! But when Rose finally has enough of Lillian's whimpering and sobbing, she goes up to her and gives her a hard slap. Lillian has to stop playing the main character because she is nothing more than an annoying extra in Rose's story. Holy cow, she's such a boss! Lillian's life may be hell, but it doesn't give her permission to harm others, especially Rose's loved ones. Apparently, Rose's slap wasn't enough to wake Lillian up, for she continued to play the victim and claim that someone like Rose, who was born into privilege, could never understand her agony. Rose's ears perk up at Lillian's claim that she finds herself slapping her again. How could she speak so lightly as if she understood Rose's hardships when she clearly does not? Rose begins lecturing Lillian, telling her that if love is what she seeks, then she should have used her powers to help others, and she should have been more kinder instead of complaining. Rose is so enraged with her logic that she hits her again, but this time Tina catches her blow. While Tina agrees with what Rose stated, she hopes Rose will also see that Lillian was raised in an environment of wicked people and never learned to love or be loved. Of course, that doesn't excuse Lillian's immoral behavior, but Rose stops when she sees Tina bow her head, begging her to let Lillian live enough to atone. Yeeg then invites Tina to come with them to White, but it seems Tina has her heart set on staying with Lillian, the one person who took her in when the Wizard's Tower gave up on her. Anyway, now that everything has calmed down in the temple, Rose glares at Yeeg, but ends up hugging him as Yeeg praises her for saving him. Cutie Rose becomes grumpy and asks Raymond to remind Dandelion that he needs to look out for his own people. But it appears that Ray has lost touch with Dandelion. Yeeg then notes that Raymond's body seems healthier now, and he discovers that this is due to the holy water pond that is currently in White. Raymond reveals that Dandelion gave him the pond as a present, and what really takes him by surprise is Dandelion's message that Rose will become the next pope. They've returned to White, and Rose is still reluctant to accept Dandelion's decision as a future pope. She angrily reminds Ray that she is not interested, explaining that she is not faithful and is not willing to sacrifice herself for the people, attributes that are required of a pope. Raymond is concerned that they cannot leave the pope's seat vacant and that he has the responsibility to transmit the word to the papacy and bishops all across the world. Her mind is spinning as she tries to piece together why Dandelion is treating her so cruelly and assumes the pond of holy water is a bribe. She turns to Raymond and asks whether he misinterpreted the revelation. Being a pope is no joke. It holds greater authority that no kingdom could ever disrespect. However, Rose already has her hands full with White and doubts that she can handle the devotees of the entire continent. She goes on to say that her dream is to live simply in White with her people, adding angrily that she has never considered anything else. Just then, Edie knocks on her door and tells her that her little dream has grown a bit. She then shows her a map and explains that they bought some land near the White Mountains for her birthday. Seeing Rose's reaction, Edie explains that the land is only the size of her finger on the map. Edie continues, saying that the contract has already been signed and that the land, including Pelia and Asta, now belong to White. Yeeg senses that Rose is struggling to take everything that is happening and chooses to make a quick exit by telling everyone that he has an important matter to attend to with Lord Rose, and they disappear. Rose sighs and thanks Yeeg as she really needs some quiet time to think. Yeeg reminds her that they can run away if she wants to, but Rose refuses because no matter what happens, she is the Lord of White. Then he makes a joke about running away to the demon world, where he thinks she would fit right in, but Rose gets serious, saying that she trusts Yeeg to stop her if she ever turns corrupt. Rose then asks Yeeg where they are, and Yeeg explains that they are in Apire, where the Archbishop resides, and he explains that until now, only the Pope could receive Dandelion's prophecies, and after Lillian, only Raymond had already met and received prophecies from God. Then, Yeeg reminds her that as one of the 7 bishops, she has the authority to nominate a pope, implying that she should recommend Raymond. Yeeg then gives Rose a villainous grin and proposes that she endorse Raymond to the Archbishop before Raymond does. However, Rose is hesitant since it appears that they are forcing Raymond into a position just because she doesn't like it. But Yeeg pinches her cheeks, reminding her that she has the authority to use her people, and Raymond is her trusted knight and older than her to handle the responsibilities. Yeeg assures her that she is not alone in this and that he is willing to shoulder the blame if the consequences of this choice create issues. Rose's clouded mind suddenly becomes clear, thanks to Yeeg. They then proceed to the temple, and Rose is surprised that Apire appears to be in fine shape, given that poor citizens of the Empire are forced to live in Apire and are neglected by the Emperor. The Empire is intended to serve Dandelion, but because the former Emperor decides to become God himself, He and the Pope despises one another, so he dumps the people he believes are useless to Apire. Rose then learns that while the Pope is the leader of the Dandelion's order, the Archbishop has the authority to choose the Pope from among the 7 bishops' recommendations. Yeeg thinks Archbishop Brad is running Apire since Lillian was neglecting her duties, and seeing how nicely the place has grown despite the problems, Rose can't wait to know what kind of person he is. They enter the temple and demand an audience with the Archbishop, but it seems that in order to do so, they must pay to ascend each floor before they finally reach his office. They paid until the 5th level, and on their way, Rose notices so many children in the temple, which leads Yeeg to disclose that everyone, regardless of wealth, is required to pay taxes. However, priests are exempt from this requirement, so the Archbishop made everyone in Apire priests in training to save them. That shocks Rose so much that she likes the Archbishop more now. However, when they reach the 5th floor, their mood changes because the floor consists of multiple rooms, and they must pay money to enter each one. Rose loses her temper and tells Yeeg to blow up every door when Santa Claus, Archbishop Brad, finally shows up. The Archbishop offers them cookies, but Rose has already lost trust in him and believes he'll make her pay for it, making him giggle. He apologizes on behalf of his priests, who must have confused her for a noble looking to buy indulgences. He is also aware that Rose is a bishop, but he never asks her to perform her duties because they have the Pope, though they are not on good terms. He once requested Pope Lillian to assist the needy people of Apire, but he was entirely disregarded, so he stopped visiting Tehi and chose to use the money they received from indulgences and temple visits to help their people. That explains the Apire's eagerness to collect money. He then begins to wonder about Rose's unexpected arrival, but our girl is so cunning that she demands the Archbishop pay her for every piece of information she reveals. Rose begins by claiming to have information about the next pope, which isn't particularly fascinating to the Archbishop until he discovers that Pope Lillian's title has been taken from her, a punishment from Dandelion delivered by a divine knight. He then pulls out a bag of money to learn more, and Rose proudly tells him about the candidate, Raymond, a divine knight chosen by Dandelion to deliver Lillian's punishment. Since Rose isn't the best liar, she lets him know that she too is a candidate after Raymond learns from Dandelion's prophecy that she will be the future pope. However, she strongly declines the position since she has little faith in him, and she begins defining herself in ways that no holy person could think of, such as urging people to work hard rather than pray for it. She even criticizes him for selling indulgences when it's clear that he is using God's name to make profit, which causes the Archbishop to laugh so hard. He knows it's all business, making money off sinners who believe indulgences would save them, but it's his only way to help the people, and he's ready to pay for his sins when the time comes. From what he can tell, Rose is full of divine power, and her honesty and willpower make her the best candidate for Pope. Her plan fails successfully! He hasn't even met Raymond yet, and Rose is freaking out because she thinks he's making a hasty decision. The Archbishop's role is to meet and examine the candidates selected by bishops like her, so he suggests that Rose invite him to White to meet Raymond. They have arrived in White, and just as Rose begins to question whether or not she made the correct choice in bringing the Archbishop to White, Raymond dashes up, worried why she suddenly vanished. She quickly says sorry, then introduces him to Archbishop Brad, causing Raymond to kneel before the Archbishop formally greets him. The Archbishop confirmed that he had indeed encountered God in person because he smelled so strongly of Dandelion, and because he wants to ask some questions, he suggests that he take him on a tour of the White Kingdom, which Rose agrees to, hoping that the Archbishop will think more highly of Raymond than of her. During their walk, Raymond asks the Archbishop what brings him to White, and the Archbishop explains that he is assessing the Pope's candidacy. Even though Lord Rose despises the prospect of becoming Pope, Raymond is taken aback to find that she informed the Archbishop personally. Children run towards Raymond, asking whether they may play as they used to, and he assures them that he is now fully cured, which makes them all very happy. The Archbishop asks the children if they are also close to Lord Rose, and everyone expresses how important she is to them and even argues for her. A boy explains that Lord Rose is more like family to them because she protects them, helps them survive the most difficult times, and expresses how much they all love her. Meanwhile, Yeeg tells Rose to continue declining the position of future pope in order to prevent the Archbishop from taking any action. But Rose is concerned that, while God has given her divine power and holy water, if she disobeys his will, White will suffer consequences. Yeeg comforts her by telling her that God helps those who help themselves, and he tells her to keep moving and doing what she believes is right without overthinking it. She then informs him that she should have a prayer practice as bishop, and asks Yeeg whether there is a place for it in White. They actually have, and Archbishop and Raymond arrive just in time to discover their small, abandoned chapel. While checking the rundown chapel, the Archbishop is torn between choosing Raymond, a devoted follower, or Lord Rose, who will surely eradicate the systemic corruption plaguing the temple. Just following that, Prince Sun walks in, stunned to see a prayer chamber, and expresses his concern to Raymond. The Archbishop is fascinated to learn that many races, particularly elves, have settled in White, while Prince Sun explains that their race is indebted to Rose, who rescued them from the Chimera experiment. The Archbishop is well aware that the Order did little to assist the elf, so he conveys his regret to Sun, who gladly accepts his apologies before leaving. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, while waiting for Rose, our business dragon Edie is busy looking at the world map, intending to buy more land for Rose. But Snow and Eiffel are reluctant because Rose might become overwhelmed. Then Sun walks in and overhears Edie talking about her expansion plan. He advises her not to bring it up in their meeting and proceeds to show them even more work scrolls, hinting that Rose is already extremely busy. When Rose and Yig arrive to begin their discussion, she's intrigued by one of the scrolls bearing a papal seal and begins to read it before Yig steps in and warns her that something is awry. But it's too late. Rose spots a peculiar crest on it and a burst of red light so intense that not even the dragons can approach her. The demon hands form and reach for Rose, but Yig rushes in to rescue her and destroys the scroll before it gets a hold of her. She's safe for the time being, but Yig is worried since he identifies the crest as a demonic summoning tool that can only be activated by Rose and is designed to transport her to the underworlds. While Rose is sleeping from shock, Prince Sun approaches Yig and apologizes for not verifying the scrolls before handing them to Rose, which Yig quickly dismisses because even if he did check the scroll, he would have missed it since it can only be activated by Rose. Yig isn't sure why the demons are after Rose, but the fact that Raymond has been possessed by one and demonic beasts have been rampaging recently seems suspicious to him. He is also aware that the spell on the scroll can only be created by a high-level demon. So before anything else happens, he plans to go to the demonic world and check, which causes some concern from Sun since it will make Rose worry again. Morning comes, and they are now having a meal with the Archbishop, who still prefers her to be the next pope. However, he already knows that Rose will never accept the position, so he proposes a plan to her. Because the pope position is vacant, he, the Archbishop, must fill it, but he wants Raymond to be the acting Archbishop for 3 months and go to Tahay to declare that in 3 months, he will choose the next pope. So if the other bishops have candidates, they should make an endorsement. Raymond is hesitant, but Brad knows he's worthy, and even if he won't become the pope, he wants Raymond to be the Archbishop so he can retire. After that, the Archbishop acknowledges Rose will not take the pope role, which relieves her greatly. But he still wants her to perform her duties as a bishop for 3 months and help the people affected by the epidemic. Once done, he swears to never bother her again about becoming the next pope, to which Rose agrees. Yig steps in to reassure Rose that she is under no need to follow the Archbishop, but Rose seems to be not against it. Plus, she wants to share the holy water that they received to save people. Yig then announces that because of the issue they have with the demonic scroll, he has to go to Taehi and will not be able to join her. Yig first informs Sun of his decision, and because only those immune to demonic time flow can reach the underworld, he intends to go alone. It is easy to become lost while traveling to the underworld due to the strange flow of time there. What seems like a minute there could end up taking years. Rose appears taken aback by his abrupt plan, but she refrains from inquiring further, instead assuring Yig that she will be all right without him. Rising to his feet, Sun resolves to tag along with Rose on her mission, assuring her safety alongside Edie and Arthur. Now that Rose's safety is ensured, she turns to Yig and asks if she should be concerned about him leaving. Aside from a smile and a promise to return soon, Yig remains silent about his plans to visit the underworld. Perhaps Yig is waiting for Rose to whine a little bit, but then he understands that Rose is no longer a child and has a lot of trustworthy friends, which he always hopes for her, yet part of him still doesn't want to go. Rose arrives in his room that evening to listen to his troubles, having noticed that he hasn't been himself since morning, while Yig smiles proudly that she has grown and become a fine lord. Now that Yig views her as an adult, Rose wants to take this chance to confess. However, Yig detects her blushing and quickly brings up Sun, whom he believes has feelings for her. He asks Rose to reconsider her feelings, which suggests that no matter how hard she tries, things will never work out between them because he believes she deserves someone better. Since she can't sway his mind, Rose argues that he shouldn't be able to decide who she likes either. She walks away with a pained expression on her face, and Yig chooses to ignore the situation. After the issue with the demonic world, Yeeg intends to leave Rose, reasoning that she is now capable of surviving without him, and believing that it's time for him to disappear along with the curse. On the other side, Lucifer is becoming increasingly furious with his minion for failing their mission and swears to get Yeeg no matter what. The day has come for Raymond and Yeeg to bid farewell to everyone and visit the Taehi Temple. Arthur is surprised by Lord Rose's absence and assumes that Yeeg and Lord Rose had an argument. However, she is merely observing them from a distance, feeling sad. Just as the Archbishop is getting excited about retiring, he hears what he takes to be the sound of a cat and thinks it's Lord Rose's. It's Elizabeth in a cuter version. He gets the impression that the cat wants him to follow it, and he is taken aback when the cat leads him to a sacred pond. While at the Taehi Temple, the bishops are unable to comprehend how a mere divine knight could be appointed as the acting pope. Yeeg, however, explains that Raymond is only carrying out the Archbishop's orders and presents them with the certificate of appointment. Yeeg offers to put the bishop in touch if they still do not believe, but in a menacing voice, he warns them of the consequences if they question Archbishop Brad's choice of interim pope, and suggests that they should obey Raymond, who is now both the Archbishop and Pope. Before continuing with his underworld mission, Yeeg asks Raymond if he remembers what happened when he was possessed by a demon, and he reveals that all he remembers is a voice telling him that he will die anyway, so he will borrow his body for his lord Lucifer, which leads Yeeg to believe that demons have infiltrated Taehi. But he wonders how this is related to what happened in White and why they are after Rose. Then Yeeg finds a hidden door in the basement of the Taehi Temple that leads to the demon world. Meanwhile, Rose is still enraged with Yeeg, calling him an idiot who makes light of her feelings as she throws her pillows just in time for Arthur to enter her room. So she pretends to be doing something and tells him to notify others that they would be leaving the next day for their 3-month mission. Lucifer was the mightiest and most dreaded evil ruler of the demon world until Yggdrasil wrecked it, and he painstakingly rebuilt it from the ground up. Speaking of the destroyer of the underworld, Lucifer is startled when Yggdrasil unexpectedly shows up in his office, looking so furious. Lucifer tries to stop him from attacking, but it's too late since Yeeg is certain to destroy him again. Even though Lucifer is in pain, seeing Yeeg makes him so happy that he tears up. After all, he wants Yeeg to be king of the demons. I did not expect the Demon Lord to be a fan of our guy here. Lucy's silly response has a backstory. Before Yeeg met the King of White, he hunted and sent the demons back to the underworld, all tied up as he hated seeing them lurking, which Lucifer found humorous. So he had Yeeg brought to him so he could recruit him as a minion, but Yeeg effortlessly crushed him. For a demon lord, Lucy shows a surprising lack of pride and instantly recognizes Yeeg's right to become the next Demon King. However, Yeeg refuses and is more interested in their treasury than taking the Demon King's throne. To sum up, Yeeg obtained his famous nickname, Mad Dog, after robbing the underworld and making Lucy poor. Lucifer is so certain that Yeeg will one day return to govern the demonic world that it irritates Yeeg. He believes Yeeg is deserving of the throne and that the human world is too tiny to accommodate him. In response, Yeeg becomes even more enraged and punches Lucy once again, yelling that he isn't really interested and is so tired of receiving his love letters. I mean, his annoying invitation letters. I can't believe I'm gushing over a demon lord, but Lucy is really adorable as he sobs, explaining how Yeeg's public humiliation and his defeat crushed his dignity, driving him to hope for Yeeg to just take his place. Yeeg begins to believe that Lucy is getting revenge on him by targeting Rose, his lord. But to his surprise, Lucy explains that he only sent demons to the bishops and the Pope because he is desperate to find him. He continues to share his plan of wanting to make a contract with a corrupt priest, since a priest is a strong catalyst enough for him to materialize in the human world. Yeeg then figures out that whoever targeted Rose is aware of her power, making her the perfect catalyst. In a fit of rage, Yeeg grabs Lucifer and demands to know which demon he sends to the human realm, who he made the agreement with, and where they are. Rose's golem appears dejected in white because he wasn't permitted to join Rose in her mission while Elizabeth can. Well, that is because Elizabeth has powers, but Margaret also warns him that leaving the kingdom is risky, according to Yeeg. After assuring him that Rose will return shortly, specifically in 3 months, she sends this little cranky golem, much like her owner, running away. The golem ventures beyond their boundaries, confiding in their pet fox his worry that Rose may no longer need him. As far as Yeeg knows, demons cannot interfere with the human world, which Lucy agrees with, and he adds that they are merely offering deals to humans, and it's their choice to take them. Yig then starts to wonder if he is responsible for corrupting Pope Lilian, but learns that while Lilian is competent to summon him, he gives up because Lilian's body is already rotting. Yig continues to question if he has sent demons elsewhere other than the temple, and Lucy eagerly discloses that he has recently, in order to gather information on him, and it has most likely arrived in the White Mountains. Speaking of, the demon is already standing before our adorable golem. After picking up the mana, the demon decides to check out the golem. He rips the poor thing to pieces with his keen claws in order to get at the crystal within. The fox attacks the demon with all of his strength, prompting the demon to become enraged. But before he can launch an assault, he suddenly loses his arm thanks to Exiled. Snow cuts off the demon's escape attempt and kills him. Yes, my parents! They are tasked with protecting White while Rose and everyone are away. But Exiled does not expect demons roaming the territory, so he plans to enhance the kingdom's barrier while Snow becomes concerned when she notices the golem has been shattered. Back in the demon world, Yeags experiences a sudden, sharp headache, leading him to believe that a golem has been destroyed. Yeeg thinks he's fine, so Lucifer gives him the list of humans who made deals with demons. Some of them are bishops, but his favorite is the saintess named Rose White. Oh no. Is this the result of the scroll Rose opened? However, what's more concerning is that when Lucy asks if Rose is a lord Yeeg is serving, Yeeg doesn't recall her. Yeeg begins to sweat as he tries to recall who Rose White is, but he really has no idea, so he plans to return to White and find out. When the dorky demon lord discovers that Yeeg is going to leave, he offers him a ring that represents a demon lord's seal, which causes Yeeg to stare at him with disgust and quickly throw the ring out the window. Lucy clings to Yeeg like a child, keeping him from going, but Yeeg becomes serious and wants Lucy to realize that he is worthy of being the demon lord because he basically rebuilt the underworld after he destroyed it. Before leaving, Yeeg gives his final warning not to touch White again, while poor Lucy sobs. James, the new Tower Master, is in the middle of a meeting when Snow enters, asking for his assistance with figuring out what to do with Rose's golem. Snow freezes the magic crystal to prevent it from further cracking, and wonders whether James can mend it. But unfortunately, he can't, and only Yeeg can, as it was made using his memories. Aethel then brings up the vital issue that Yeeg's memories have also likely been damaged. They can only pray that these memories aren't particularly important. Actually, guys, it's the most important memory. It's about Rose. The other golems then begin to circle Rose's golem, and Gen begins to speak up, saying that they would heal and share their memories to fix the golem for Yeeg. In the meantime, Yeeg is reliving memories of Rose, but he can't see her face clearly, that he ends up tearing up. Yeeg is now trapped between the underworld and their world, a dangerous place to be lost, but he struggles to remember where he's going, making him disoriented. Then, out of nowhere, he hears a knock and a door appears, but Yeeg has no intention of entering since he isn't sure who is on the other side. But as the volume of the knocks increases, hundreds of doors keep appearing, causing Yeeg to take the situation seriously, asking that whoever is behind them reveal themselves. He is taken aback when, out of the blue, his golem starts showing up, accompanied by Gen, who assures him that they have arrived to help him. Rose and her team have arrived in Asta, and she now understands why the territory was sold for such a low price. The once fertile soil is now barren. Count Asta and his daughter abandoned their homeland, leaving it to die as they sought refuge from the pandemic. Rose discovers that the drought has rendered farming impossible, and neighboring regions have closed their borders to the people of Asta to prevent the spread of illness. Sun proceeds to assist a guy who appears to be ill and starving, and inquires as to whether the Asta temple priests have done nothing to alleviate the situation. The man verifies this by presenting Sun with a vial of holy water sold by the temple to help them feel better. Sun examines the vial and uncovers that it isn't real holy water, and the temple is tricking the public by telling them that if it doesn't work, it implies they lack faith. Rose wants to punish the temple badly and is becoming increasingly agitated. However, our girl is a lord with plans, so she asks the archbishop, escorted by Arthur, to go ahead to the temple while she helps the people first. Archbishop Brad arrives at the temple to assist with relief operations, but when the priests hear that he is no longer the archbishop, they cease to be polite to him and refuse to accept his assistance. Meanwhile, Prince Sun is tasked with gathering the people and announcing that White has arrived to provide them with the essentials they require. Furthermore, he announces that he will pay 1 gold to anybody who can bring him vials, empty or not, which causes the people to be confused, until Sun reveals that the holy water they purchased is all fake. He goes on to say that the real holy water tends to have an effect on everybody, regardless of faith, leading the people to wonder if the temple has truly forsaken them. Then, out of nowhere, a dragon appears and the rain begins to fall, curing everyone of their illness, while Sun is so proud to tell them that this is the real deal. Rose, who is actually riding Edie in her dragon form, is pouring out the holy water. That's such a flex. At the Asta Temple, after Archbishop Brad and Arthur are kicked out, the priests notice that the line of people waiting to buy their fake holy water has completely disappeared. At the same moment, Rose and Edie make their dramatic entry, and it's time for Rose to teach these con artists a lesson. When the head priest learns that Rose is the new Lord of Asta, he promptly kneels and begs her forgiveness. But Rose has no time to listen to him dilly-dally with whatever reason he has. She then opens her pouch, which can carry an infinite number of items, and vials start spewing out from it, striking the priest as she exposes their crime of selling fake holy water. The head priest musters up quite the explanation when he tells Rose that they sell the water for rituals, which he thinks is just as good as holy water, and that it's the people's faith that determines whether or not it works. His second point is that they simply take the money the people are willing to give them. Well, he missed his opportunity to confess, and now Rose is going to test the efficacy of the fake holy water on a devoted guy like him by cutting his wrist. He cries out for mercy while the other corrupt priests cower in terror, but don't worry guys, our girl is just scaring these greedy priests. Rose is now planning to reclaim the stolen money, but Edie cheerfully offers to finish off the temple business so that she can go ahead and aid the people. Once Rose leaves, Edie's adorable smile transforms into a terrifying grimace. Being the one who purchased Asta, she just cannot forgive the priest for making her look ridiculous in front of Rose. She intends to punish the priest to recover her investment, so she lets her fury out. They messed with the wrong business, dragon. Rose has arrived in the village and declares that she is now the Lord of Asta and has come to provide all the assistance they will need to get back on their feet. However, Rose adds that this will not be free and encourages them to farm and rebuild the territory, which concerns the people. They no longer have faith in the priests and nobility, and they are afraid that no matter how hard they work to restore their homeland, they will be ignored just as before. Rose understands their worries and acknowledges that, as a noblewoman, she lacks the necessary skills to carry out manual labor. Plus, she doesn't know much about Asta, which is the primary reason for her reliance on their assistance. In return, she promises to restore Asta to its former glory and to provide work at a fair wage. But she also gives them the option to leave if they refuse to comply, claiming that she wants people who are committed to making a better future for themselves. Rose is worn out after her speech, so Sun comes with her, and she talks about her concern about having even more responsibilities now, while Sun praises her for being a great lord. She doubts her abilities and believes it is all due to Yig. But when Sun begins enumerating all of her accomplishments and adds that it is obvious that she's an outstanding leader because she has gained so many great companions, Rose feels reassured. She then catches herself startled by a vivid memory of the time when Yig told her that Sun liked her, which makes her upset, and she vents her fury to Dandelion, demanding rain. Seconds after that, it begins to rain heavily, so Sun hurriedly wraps his coat around Rose to protect her from the rain, and the two of them run to find shelter. Oh, they are so cute that it hurts. Also, check out Gen's transformation into a cute golem inside Yig's mind. The golems begin briefing Yig on what happened and handing over the broken magic crystal. However, Yig discovers that despite the fact that it has stopped cracking, the memories contained within it are still leaking. Yig believes that it is impossible to recover the lost memories, but the golems are eager to give their lives so that the memories inside them can help fix Rose's golem. Otherwise, Rose will be sad. Yig smiles at Gen's statement and can't believe someone is waiting for him. Thus, Operation Recover Memories starts now. The day begins bright and early in Asta when Rose decides to hang a banner encouraging everyone to build their own city. But not just that, she also puts Knocker in charge to ensure that every capable person is doing their part. This way, our girl knows for sure that Asta's residents can rebuild their homes and no longer depend on miracles to save them from disasters that may come. Now that's a true leader who cares about her people. After that, Rose gets back to paperwork, but she's obviously not in the mood because only Raymond is sending her reports every day, while Yig has yet to send her any letters. Seeing Rose's frustration, our golden dragon cheerfully reassures her that after completing their paperwork in Asta, they will journey to Regian, a small village just below Tehi, where Raymond and Yig should be. This gets Rosie all pumped up in no time, and the staff in the palace are freaking out because it means they won't get any sleep either. They arrive in Rhegion not long after, but seeing how eerie the village appears makes former Archbishop Brad feel terrible because the village was known to be a site where divine creatures such as our cutie patootie tiger here, Elizabeth, used to visit. Elizabeth becomes incredibly huggable. Gramps Brad reveals that there's a divine tree in the town, a holy tree where divine creatures used to pass between the world and heaven, which captures Rose's interest. But she is shocked to discover that the supposed tree is the massive dried-up tree in front of them. Suddenly, a young boy named Pam appears and informs them that the temple had provided them holy water, but the divine tree continued to dry out. Rose recalls Yeeg telling her that the holy water in the temple is rotten, so, like a smarty, she hangs her magical pouch on a branch and lets the holy water stream like a mini waterfall. In no time, the once haunted-looking tree glows brightly and comes back to life, making Pam so happy as he hurries away to get something for her. Sun is also enchanted by the tree's divine powers, which are undeniably obvious because Elizabeth has now returned to her original but still adorable form and snuggles with Rose. Pam then comes back to them with a lovely cat in his hands, but that's not all. This adorable little divine creature has wings. Can we take this little one to White, please? Pam claims that he purposely hid the divine creature when the temple got the rest. From what he heard, the temple experimented on them when the holy water failed, which prompted Rose to get serious and want to learn more about Pam. Later, Rose discovers that his parents have passed away and the others have left the village, but he chooses to remain because he still feels a strong desire to fulfill his duty of protecting the divine creatures. Listening to the young child reminds Rose of her younger self wanting to protect White, so Rose, being Rose, cannot let those negligent adults go unpunished, and not because she wants to see Yeeg, she says. She then gives a sneer and decides to investigate those corrupt grown-ups in the temple. Done rebuilding a city, so why not rebuild a new temple, right? Let's go! However, when they got to the Taehi temple, they were required to cross not 1, 2, 3, or 4, but 7 checkpoints before entering the temple, which is making our girl lose patience. The Divine Knight says that after Pope Lillian disappeared, the bishops divided the temple and began screening all guests. But guess who is also a bishop again? Our girl, Rose White, is one of the 7 bishops. And while she acknowledges that she never performed her duties, she can't believe that the other bishops decided to do this screening without her participation. Plus, she wonders why Raymond never mentioned it in his reports. After revealing her identity, the knight lets them in, but the knight at the next checkpoint refuses, claiming that he cannot accept the word from a lord of a tiny region in the middle of nowhere, causing Gramps Santa to finally snap. In the end, another knight allows them entry, but this makes Rose realize that they are being overlooked just because White is a small territory. Her only dream was to live blissfully in her little but welcome territory. But after witnessing how her people were imprisoned, experimented on, and ignored, a part of her now wishes for White's name to become as powerful as the Empire's. She proceeds to have a talk with Edie and is now happily accepting the lands she bought for her. Today's events have served as a stark reminder that she will not tolerate disrespect toward her, since it will lead to her people being treated like trash. Meanwhile, Yeeg is wandering with his golem inside his own memories, and when he hears little Rose call out to him, he instinctively opens his arms for her. Oh, his body remembers her. However, because this is just a memory, Rose skips over him and embraces the Yeeg from his memories. Yeeg watches a memory when he cursed in rage, and our little jellybean imitated him, upsetting Rose's golem. But after he apologized and promised to only speak politely, the golem became extremely happy, prompting Yeeg to conclude that the golem loved Rose above him, which makes sense given that he created the golem particularly for Rose. He continues to watch the memories of Rose's mother leaving, how it made her father miserable, and how even her auntie had to go marry, leaving poor Rose alone. Yeeg is aware of the scars this will leave Rose, which is why he chose to create her a golem, and the golem adored Rose because she reminded it of Yeeg's loneliness. After regaining access to his lost memories, the magic crystal is now intact, but Yeeg is still unable to fix its cracks. However, due to the huge gap that the missing memories created, he is left with no choice but to stay in the void to keep reviewing all of those memories Gen and the other golems shared with him. Otherwise, they risk having all of his memories erased. He then pats little Gen's head and tells him to go home and take care of the others while promising that he too will return soon. I can smell a time skip here. Back in Tehi, Rose and the others have reached the 7th checkpoint. The Divine Knight, unaware of our girl's identity, casually permits them to pass, claiming that the 7th bishop, responsible for the final door, is inactive and resides in a place known as White. This irritates our girl, so she requests that Edie not allow anyone to walk through the door, prompting Mommy Edie to promptly follow through by creating an enormous golden wall that will prevent anyone from entering the temple. The knights drop to the ground as Rose dramatically reminds them that she is the 7th bishop they're discussing. They made a mistake by placing her as the final checkpoint. Suddenly, they are surprised by a loud voice from behind, which Archbishop Brad immediately recognizes as Bishop Stefan. Without wasting time, Gramps Brad informs the bishop that it is now time to officially select the next pope, and that he has his candidate with him, glancing at Rose, who is standing behind him. Rose swiftly introduces herself, inquires about Raymond, and discovers he's on a secret mission ordered by the Emperor. Gathered at the table with the 6 bishops, Bishop Stefan voices his dissatisfaction regarding Gramps Brad's decision to present a new candidate without prior notice, leading the perception that they are being asked to select her. One bishop claims that Rose's position as a low-level priest disqualifies her from being a candidate, and they struggle to comprehend Gramps Brad's choice to introduce a new candidate following their experiences with the former pope. Consequently, Bishop Stefan concludes that they cannot accept Rose as their pope, causing Rose to giggle since, for the first time, she agrees with the bishop's decisions, emphasizing that she has come as a bishop, not as a candidate for pope. That said, she nominates Lord Brad as the next pope, and before Gramps could react, Rose keeps him in his seat, insisting that no one else understands God and the papacy quite like he does. Some bishops favor Lord Brad's appointment as the next pope, but others disagree, resulting in a heated debate that irritates our girl. For Rose, they're all the same, all focused on protecting their own positions while ignoring their duties to purify Regian, pursue the demons, and inform the people about the crimes committed by the previous pope. Anyway, Rose is grateful for her position as the 7th bishop because it allows her to shoo everyone out of the room. That's my girl, she really knows how to use her authority so well. After the other bishops left, Rose immediately asks Stefan what he did with the divine creatures he captured from Regian, prompting the bishop to instantly call the place a swindler village. He reveals that the village's so-called divine tree died as a result of their corruption, so he became suspicious of the so-called divine creatures and decided to confirm their divinity by using an old method. He describes how he cut the horns of the horse disguised as a unicorn and the wings of the horse disguised as a pegasus, since he believed that if they were truly divine beings, they would be able to regrow them. You're a bishop! How about we cut your arm and see whether it grows back? Gramps Brad and Rose are horrified by Stefan's casual revelation of such a horrible process, prompting Rose to question Stefan's reputation as a bishop, because they are meant to be able to recognize divine powers from those creatures. Rose also furiously reveals the fake holy water in the temple and shows Stefan the magic pouch containing the real one. But you know, simply showing it isn't enough, so our girl proceeds to throw it right in the bishop's face. Where can I buy this all-purpose pouch? Anyway, they decide to split up to search for the divine creatures, with Rose and Edie heading down an underground staircase. The location is completely black until they suddenly hear a divine creature warn them not to approach. Still, they decide to take a closer look, and the fact that the horse is glowing and has a cut horn makes Rose believe that they located the unicorn. However, their mood shifts when the unicorn addresses Rose as a bean and Edie as a lizard. This emo-looking horse has an attitude! Rose starts arguing with the unicorn, but Edie's rage is unmatched, so our girl needs to hug and calm her down. Still, Edie is firm about not assisting the divine creature if it continues to give them attitude, prompting the unicorn to eventually bow and apologize. After being set free, the unicorn rushes to the holy water fountain to retrieve his horn. So Mommy Edie hurriedly carries Rose and follows the galloping unicorn. Edie looks so cool. By the time they reach the fountain, Grandpa Brad already has the unicorn horn in his hand, but it's now black and rotting, causing the divine beast to mourn. All they have to do is use Rose's all-purpose pouch of holy water, which makes this simple. In no time, the black horn begins to shimmer and return to its natural white dazzling hue. So Rose places it to the unicorn's head, and mission complete. The emo horse is once again a unicorn. Gramps Brad, on the other hand, is horrified that their sacred temple has become so corrupted that the holy water has become black, and he begins to wonder if Taehi Temple will ever be able to carry out its duties as effectively as it once did. Rose interrupts Gramps Brad and asks whether he has found the Pegasus's wings, only to learn that he has already attached the rooted wings. She then smiles at the old man and assures him that she will cure the Pegasus with her holy water, which instantly fixes everything. Rose adds that as long as Taehi finds a credible, authentic pope, the papacy will reclaim its former glory. She then turns to ask Gramps Brad whether he agrees with her, which leads him to feel Rose is correct and that giving up now will end everything. So he goes to the holy water fountain, and although he isn't as powerful as Rose, he uses his divine powers to purify it, while Rose watches as he takes matters into his own hands to restore the papacy in order to fulfill God's will, indicating that he will accept the position of pope. However, on the condition that he will retire to white, which makes Rose smile as she agrees. Retirement secured. Meanwhile, in white, Margaret is relieved to see the restored broken golem interacting with the fox, and wishes Rose and Yeeg a safe return. Speaking of Yeeg, he is now roaming endlessly in his memory when he hears someone inquire if he is human, since she believes he is a hatchling due to his size and overflowing magic. Yeeg then sees his younger self looking so ragged and telling the woman that he can't understand what she's saying. When the woman asks about his family, he sadly informs her that his parents abandoned him because he's a monster. Okay, so even from the beginning, he is already a powerful man. The woman then extends her hand, since it is the dragon's rule to protect the young, and she pokes his nose, inviting him to live with her. Little Yeeg is so cute, and Mommy is so gorgeous! Asta's pandemic has been contained thanks to Rose. The bishops are now carrying out their duty, and the divine creatures have returned to Reagan. She is now saying her goodbyes to Gramps when Raymond returns from his trip to the palace, which pleases her. But she is disappointed to discover that Yeeg is not with him. Ray informs her that Yeeg accompanied him to Taehi, but then left after asking him questions about demons. Ray notices the shift in Rose's mood and reassures her that she shouldn't be worried, thinking that Yeeg might already be in white given that the guy will never leave her alone. Rose soon returns to white and looks everywhere for Yeeg, only to be dismayed when Margaret informs her that Yeeg is not yet back home. Margaret also informs her that Yeeg is a great mage and that she should simply trust and wait for him, but Rose hates it. Throughout her life, her relatives and the people of White have promised her that they will return, but they never do since they have discovered their own paths, while she is destined to remain in White. If waiting means trusting that they will return, Rose says with pain that she does not want to trust anyone again. No, her issues with abandonment are surfacing again. Poor Rosie. As she continues down the corridor, she notices her golem, but when she reaches her hand, the golem hides away, causing her to finally break down and cry that not only is Yeeg missing, but her beloved golem is now behaving strangely. This time, the golem finally approaches her, prompting Rose to apologize for leaving her behind, but she vows never to do it again. As she embraces her golem, she can't tell if the words she just spoke are meant for Yeeg or the words she wants to hear from him. I can't imagine the pain she's feeling, especially since Yeeg has always been there for her. Come back soon, Yeeg! It's been days, and Rose has been overworking herself, prompting Mommy Edie to encourage her to take a break, which Rose agrees to. But her definition of rest is a 10-minute nap. Rose may appear enthusiastic, but Edie knows she's in pain, so she decides to let Rose be and leave the office. Just then, Snow appears with some bread she prepared for Rose, but she decides not to bother her when Edie informs her that Rose is napping. Edie is clearly concerned about Rose's health, and she knows it's because Yeeg hasn't sent them any news in the last 3 months. That evening, Rose makes up her mind to visit the magic tower and speak with Gen. Then, she takes her pillow and lies down next to the fireplace, all the while pondering whether the emotions she is experiencing right now are the same as those that Gen had in the past, as he waited for thousands of years for Yeeg to come back. Gen, being Gen, claims that he was fine before since he has a lot of memories of Yeeg, which makes Rose jealous because she knows little about Yeeg. She doesn't know what type of person he was or what kind of life he led, so she asks Gen to tell her about Yeeg's childhood. I'm starting to miss Yeeg too! A long time ago, before the Kingdom of White existed, and even before Yeeg began using his name Yggdrasil, he lived in a humble home on a mountain with a beautiful dragon who adopted him. He begins to wonder whether the lady is a dragon because of how little her house is, but he is persuaded otherwise after seeing her golden, elongated pupils. Mommy here seemed to like living as a human since her home is filled with books and well-decorated, and she proudly guarantees him that she is also adept at housework. She seems like a fun parent to have. Anyway, she realizes that this little Babu has no name, so she immediately scans her books and names him Yggdrasil, which means World Tree. They lived peacefully together, but Mommy gets frustrated today when Yig casually mentions that the other baby dragons made fun of him for not being a real dragon. She can't tolerate it when others tease him, so she's going to talk to the parents while reminding Yig that he's a dragon's son. She pats his head, knowing that he is much stronger than the other hatchlings, and hopes that he will not allow the others to bully him again, which warms Yig's heart and agrees. If you guys are wondering, Yig has forgotten his mother's name, which is why you won't see her name mentioned here. Years have passed, and Yig has grown into a teenager, but Mama Dragon continues to teach him how humans do home chores, like washing blankets with their feet in a basin. He doesn't understand what this is for, so she smiles and tells him that he needs to learn since he will have to do it on his own someday, which makes Yig displeased because it sounds like Mommy does not want to help him in the future. Despite her being aware of Yig's distress, she proceeds to smugly inform him that he will eventually have to handle things on his own, prompting the small boy to begin pouting. She flashes her melancholy grin before teasingly making her son irritable as she giggles. Oh, look at them washing those blankets. They seem so cozy and joyful. But I know Mommy is prepping Yig for something sad. After several years, Yig has grown taller than his mother and has mastered the use of his magic. She is relieved that she raised Yig well and asks if he wants to try living among humans now that he can control his powers and do chores, prompting Yig to express that he feels she raised him only to abandon him at some point. However, their conversation is cut short when her friend arrives and announces that Raidnia has given birth to a jewelry dragon. A jewelry dragon is a gem-eating mutant dragon with strong talents that allow it to mature into a full-grown dragon in just one day. Yig also heard that other dragons have avoided this sort of dragon since ancient times because of their strong skills. So even dragons are racist, huh? He then listens to his mom and Anastasia as they discuss this, and learns that Rednia's hatchling has been separated from her, owing to their differences, which causes him to think on his mommy's commitment to raise someone like him in such a confined environment, and he wonders whether he may have unknowingly burdened her by staying with her. When Yig returns home from picking herbs, he is surprised to see her packing their stuff and instructing him to pack his own. He later learns that Rednia's child has died, which enrages Rednia and causes her to begin chasing every hatchling. However, Yig pauses before telling her that they should fight together, prompting her to explain that Rednia is an ancient dragon who could defeat her in 5 minutes. Not long after that, they hear a rumbling sound and they turn up to see Rednia, who appears to have lost her mind, destroying their ceiling. Despite Mommy's efforts to convince Rednia that Yig is not a dragon hatchling and that she too believes what she has been through is unjust, Rednia continues to attack, leaving Mommy with no choice but to go serious. Therefore, she transforms into a white dragon and instructs Yig to descend the mountain and seek refuge among humans. This causes the young Yig to freak out and worries about her, but she reassures him that he can now live on his own, and she smiles, encouraging him to live in a world where he belongs, far away from them. Can I just add that her dragon form looks really majestic and queenly? She starts to shield him from Rednia, and as they clash, he dashes into the woods, not pausing while her voice echoes in his mind, and he halts, gazing at the village before him. Is that white before it became a kingdom? Back to the fight, Mommy is down and is about to accept her defeat when Yig bursts in, takes Rednia's attention, and quickly explains to Mommy that he's not sure whether she's right that he can now live on his own. But he knows one thing for certain. He's a human and her child. Yig fights Rednia, and for a human, he is incredibly powerful, defeating her but at the cost of his own life. Mommy embraces him in her arms, wishing him to be happy among other humans, to live and die as one. However, as a mother, she cannot bear the thought of seeing him die, so she calls herself a fool as she lets Yig take Rednia's heart in order to bring him back to life. She clearly understands that giving her son eternal life is wrong, but what else should a mom do in this situation? After that day, Yig is given the name of the hatchling's guardian angel, which irritates him. However, Mommy goes on to say that as long as he stays in the Dragon Society, he'll be known as the hatchling's guardian angel, and her suggestion for him to meet other humans is not an attempt to send him away, but rather a wish for him to embrace a colorful life. Soon after, Yig meets a human who instantly identifies him as the mage known for having defeated a dragon. The bubbly guy swiftly presents himself as Lucas White, but Yig icily responds that he does not accept anyone weaker than him, thus challenging him to a duel. Lucas is uncertain about confronting a mage, but his interest peaks when Yig clarifies that it will be a fist fight and that if he wins, Lucas must accompany him to meet Mommy and tell that he is a friend. In conclusion, Lucas gets beaten and he happily presents himself as a friend of Yggdrasil, which delights Mommy, and offers an invitation to share a snack together. So, he beat up the founder of White and that's how they became BFFs? Cuties. As their friendship blossoms, Lucas reveals his lifelong ambition to become king and expresses his wish for Yig to be part of the kingdom he plans to create. Lucas, my boy, I am proud to say that your kingdom has come a long way and is doing great. When Yig returns home that day, he spots a letter on the table addressed to his mother's friend, Anastasia. But he reads it anyway and discovers that his mom is asking Anastasia to help him if he ever comes to find her after she leaves. Just then, Mommy enters and is surprised to find him so early, while Yig confronts her, furious that she intends to leave without telling him. As she smiles bitterly and looks down, she confesses her plans to have her eternal sleep, shocking Yig to the point that he starts to tremble, convinced that she's planning to die since she no longer wants to be near him. Mommy promptly rejects this, stating that she has planned her eternal sleep long before she met him simply because she had lived far too long already. However, things don't go as planned when she met him, and she is always missing the opportunity to leave because watching Yig grow brings her so much happiness. But now she feels like it's finally time, because she's already sinned by killing Rednia, her own kind. And while the dragons are on her and Yig's side, she knows that sooner or later they will decide to eliminate him, a human, for killing a dragon. She embraces her son warmly, comforting him with the words that she is at peace now. While Yig is crying his eyes out, Mommy gives him her final lesson, saying goodbyes, which causes him to tighten his hug. This totally crushes my heart. She really loves him, but living a long life must have been exhausting already. Anyway, Yig eventually returned to the humans and supported Lucas in building the Kingdom of White. Rose can't help but feel terrible for Yig after hearing Gen's story because it must have been so lonely to keep saying goodbyes to his loved ones one by one. She then starts crying, wondering if she'll be able to say goodbye to him with a smile in the future. 3 years have passed, and the Empire is in crisis because the White Kingdom took over so much land without bloodshed. Wow, Rose kept herself really busy. Adrian looks bored with his officials since even if they declare war, they will never be able to conquer a kingdom with dragons, prompting one official to suggest he marry Lord Rose. Worse, the official has already sent a proposal letter to White, making Adrian enraged and terrified that Yig will undoubtedly kill him once he sees the letter. The Emperor is still afraid of Yig, and I love it. Now in White, Sun and Edie are looking through hundreds of gifts given by different nobles to propose to Rose, but they are all aware that our girl is not interested. Sun, on the other hand, decides to give Edie the letter from the Imperial Palace and requests that she deliver it to Rose. Edie walks into Rose's room and sees our feisty little girl who, oh my goodness, has grown into such a beautiful woman. I mean, come on! Look at that off-the-shoulder red dress. She's so pretty. Anyway, Edie nags her for bringing work into her bedroom again, but she still gives her the letter from the Imperial Palace. Edie believes it is a proposal like the others, which makes Rose smirk as she wonders if Yig would finally show up if he finds out. Yiggy, it has been 3 years. Come back now. When he sees her now, he will definitely not see a little girl. Speaking of our missing boy, Yig chooses to meet Lady Lange, also known as Miss Anastasia in dragon form, who recognizes him as Grace's son right away. After a long time of forgetting his mother's name, he finally hears it today. Grace. What a beautiful name for a mom. Anyway, Yig informs Anastasia that his mother once advised him to find her if he is in crisis, so he is hopeful that she may assist him, which Anastasia accepts as long as it does not interfere with her enjoyment. Meanwhile, our gorgeous Rose is sipping tea with Sun, but her thoughts are preoccupied, causing Sun to sigh and believe that the sleep-inducing tea isn't helping her sleep enough. I still can't get over how beautiful our tiny baby has grown. He then asks if she intends to accept the Emperor's proposal and discovers that while she is not currently considering it, she may be inclined to accept it if it benefits their kingdom's future. Rose has realized for the past 3 years that she no longer needs Yeeg to run the kingdom, leading her to believe that Yeeg has been preparing her all along. So she asks Sun if it is safe to assume that Yeeg will never return. Her only wish now is to know if Yeeg is still alive, which leads Sun to reveal the secret behind the contract she made with Yeeg. Yeeg's magical power runs inside her body rather than divine power. He goes on to say that the strong divine power was supposed to destroy her body when she was younger, but because of the contract, Yeeg ties his own magical powers to her to save her. So the fact that she's still alive now implies that Yeeg is still alive and well. He holds back the desire to let Rose in on all the details of Yeeg's plans to break the contract and die, but instead decides to keep searching for Yeeg and begs her not to make rash decisions regarding her marriage. Aw, my best boy Sun has given up pursuing Rose and has become Yeeg's wingman. His love is really pure. Back to Yeeg, Anastasia hears his story about the golems, and the problem she sees with him is that he's attempting to keep all of his memories despite Grace's instructions to destroy them. Memories of Rose flood back to him, and he honestly tells Anastasia that he does not want to forget anything, causing her to finally understand why Grace was so worried about her child. Grace taught him how to use golems to erase his memory because he will live forever, and there's only so much that a human can take, but it appears that she failed because her son now laments his forgotten memories. In any case, based on what Yeeg told her, he was able to save the majority of his precious memories. But it appears that Yeeg felt as if he was watching someone else's memories, so he hopes Anastasia can help him make his memories fully his own. Anastasia resolves to find him a way, but for the time being, he must play one of her suitors due to her image as Lady Lange, a lady who has recently debuted in high society. Not long after that, word quickly reached the White Kingdom that Yeeg had arrived in Tis and was proposing to Lady Lange. Sun doesn't know how to tell Rose about this, but oh my, our girl has just heard everything and she looks so heartbroken. Sun declares to bring Yeeg back, and the pair, Edie and Shasta, are willing to drag the mage back. But Rose strongly refuses as she intends to meet him personally, with only Arthur as her knight. Her Aunt Minerva is the queen of Tis, so she will pay her a visit as an excuse to see how Yeeg is doing. Being ghosted for 3 years and then hearing that he's pursuing another woman is so cruel. Fortunately, Rose's aunt has already given her an invitation to her son's birthday celebration, so they may make use of the chance to travel to Tis via the magical portal. Sun watches them leave, worried about Rose, while Edie simply urges him that all they can do now is support her. Despite this, Sun is upset at Yeeg for being so heartless to abandon her in such a way. Rose and Arthur are now walking the bustling streets of Tis, with Arthur requesting her to wait in the villa for a bit while he delivers his letter to her auntie. But knowing Rose, she slips out of the mansion that night for a stroll and watches the fireworks with a gloomy mood, remembering that Yeeg had given her fireworks as a birthday present before. She takes her time enjoying the scenery, but not until she turns to her side and unexpectedly meets the gaze of the one she misses the most. Yeeg! Finally, our girl has been patient enough. However, Yeeg only stares blankly at her, while our girl here is nearly in tears. But her heart breaks even more when she realizes he's with Lady Lange. Rose then gets confused that Yeeg made no effort to talk to her before he takes off with the woman. Still on their way, Yeeg looks back to find Rose in the crowd. He's beginning to think she's the same person from his memories, but he can't quite place her, especially because she seems more mature now. Back in the villa, Arthur scolds Rose for walking alone, while Rose is still dazed as she tells Arthur she saw Yeeg and he ignored her, prompting Arthur to shut up. Rose begins to break down as she describes how Yeeg acted as if he didn't recognize her, making her more determined not to leave until she can speak with him and hear the reasons why. Our girl is so strong because if it were me, I'd come home and cry till I got over it. The next day, Rose visits her Aunt Minerva, who is delighted to see her after a long time. She gently strokes Rose's cheek and is sure that her brother will be so proud that she became a beautiful young lady. Rose then informs her aunt that she plans to attend the banquet quietly and return to White immediately. Her aunt consents, but expresses worry that others might identify her. Rose, however, assures her by stating that she came prepared, which leaves her aunt puzzled and leads her to inquire if Yeeg is accompanying her after noticing his name on the banquet list. She then requests her aunt to maintain the secrecy of her presence, even if she encounters Yeeg at the banquet, and promises to explain later. Soon after the banquet ceremony begins, Rose's stunning black hair perfectly complements her royal blue gown, capturing the attention of every guest and making her feel that her disguise is essential, as encountering the nobles who proposed to her would be inconvenient. Ugh, she's so pretty! However, her aunt recognizes her, causing her to introduce herself as Lady Lizzie, something her aunt instantly understands, and they both laugh about it. After some time, she notices Yig with slick back hair having a lovely discussion with the woman standing next to him and identifies her as Lady Lange, who appears to be her age. Relax, my lady, that pretty girl is just a very old dragon helping Yigi. As Yig and Lady Lange chat, the dragon figures out that because of their contract, Yig is merely distancing himself from Rose and treating her coldly while blaming it on his muddled memories. So, you're telling me he's suppressing his feelings and choosing to distance himself so he can easily break the contract? Yig denies this, but Lange knows he's lying, so she begins teasing him, irritating Rose, who's watching from a distance. She decides to drink the night away since she's old enough to do so, but her drunken beauty captivates so many nobles that even Yig gets intrigued when he sees, my oh my, Rose looking extra haughty seated with a wine glass in her hand. One man gives her a so-called much better drink, but Yig swiftly takes it away, surprising Rose. Her frustration with him grows, so she upsettingly questions whether they know one another and shoos him out. Yet Yig reacts calmly, explaining that even if they don't know each other, his company is less boring than the others, and he offers his hand, inviting her to join him. I miss Yig's smile and his goofiness. They decide to head to the balcony where Yig expresses his apologies for his earlier behavior and mentions that she reminds him of someone he knows. Following that, he introduces himself with a subtle smile, and Rose, who is still wearing her disguise, introduces herself as Lizzie. Right before Yig leaves, Rose asks him, "Are you happy now?" with all her heart. Ugh, how tragic. The last thing she wants to know is if he's happy, not about them or even why he left. I am not okay. This throws Yig off guard, but just as he asks if they've met before, the first song of the night plays, so he invites our girl to dance and promises to answer her question right after. She accepts his hand, and as they begin dancing gracefully, Yig begins to express that a lot has happened in his life, and that he is about to gain what he wants. So he smiles and tells her that he is indeed happy now. By that, I know he meant his eternal sleep, right? Like his mom, Rose's eyes are filled with sadness, but Yig lifts her and eventually addresses her as Milord, as he finally recognizes her after a closer look. He also recalls the magic of disguise, so he restores her hair to its silvery hue with a touch, and as he gazes at her, he realizes that she has truly matured into a woman. Rose speaks up and says that it has been years, so she decided to come and check on him, and she sees that he seems happy with Lady Lange, but she wishes he had told her before he ghosted her. Still, she is relieved to hear that he is happy, so she resolves to finally give him freedom. Speak up, Yigi, tell her it's a misunderstanding. Rose then kisses him goodbye on the cheek, and with watery eyes and a slight smile playing on her lips, finally lets go of the mage she loved. Yig stands there baffled while Rose runs to Arthur, crying and pleading with him that they return to White. Yig, on the other hand, tries to catch them, but the portal flashes before him, and Rose and Arthur vanish. Why are we here just to suffer? Yig really has no idea that he has been gone for 3 years, since there's no flow of time in his memories. But he thinks that the misunderstandings he has with Rose now might be for the better, since this will make it easier to end their contract. When he makes up his mind to return to White, he has one last farewell with Lady Lange, who figures out that he plans to leave just like Grace did. Her expression is one of sadness, as she finds it bittersweet that the desire to selfishly rest eternally seems to run in their family. I can't wait for Yig to realize he's in love with our gal. Okay, as the title suggests, I will be patient with you, Yigi. Meanwhile, Arthur chooses to speak with Rose and admits that he would have beaten Yig if she had just commanded him, which makes our girl giggle. He then kneels in front of her, claiming that his loyalty is solely for her, and reminding her of how she nagged him to become her guardian knight when she was little. Aw, I like how they have a sibling vibe, and Arthur has that older brother tone. That time, Arthur firmly refused, leaving Rose in shock, and she discovered that he thought it was useless to stay in a cold place where not even a single sprout could thrive. One day, Rose proudly presented him with a sprout she planted and asked him whether he was now fond of White, making him feel guilty, so he decided to be honest. Arthur explained that remaining in White will hinder his dream of becoming a sword master like his parents. Thus, he wants to leave and seek opportunities in a larger place. However, when Rose resolutely expressed her dream of turning White into a great kingdom where joyful individuals can live, and vowed that it would be a place he could be proud of, he was persuaded to stay. Back in the present, Arthur expresses that even though this isn't his first dream, he is proud of protecting her and the White Kingdom. So what he's trying to convey is that just because Rose didn't achieve all of her dreams, particularly Yig, doesn't mean she's failed. Rose then expresses her wish for Yig's happiness and admits her arrogance in believing that she can give him that joy. However, at the banquet, Yig's confirmation of his happiness makes her want him to be as happy as he likes. She takes a deep breath before asking Arthur if she made the right decision, to which he nods in response. Wow, I find his way of comforting really attractive. Meanwhile, James is laying on his table in the magic tower when suddenly a warp opens and he is shocked to see that Yig has finally come home. Now that everyone has gathered in the conference hall, Yig explains how he lost his memory while in the demonic world, and met Lady Langay after that. Rose then coldly asks him why he returned, reminding him that she's granting him his freedom, which he acknowledges. But in order for him to actually be free, she must break their contract. Rose then asks Yig whether he is positive there will be no problems if they break the contract. When he gives his assurance, she swiftly gets to her feet and urges him to break the contract immediately, leaving Prince Sun stunned. Be careful, girlie, you'll go cry when you find out about the contract. But since Yig needs more time to prepare before breaking the contract and leaving White, they end the meeting there. Following that, White resumed its regular routine as if nothing had happened. However, today at the Magic Tower, James shared with Yig about the Emperor's proposal, which prompts him to rush to Rose's office to confirm it. Rose then reveals that the Emperor wants her to seriously consider his proposal and demands that she visit the Empire to discuss it. Rose proceeds to explain to Yig that since Snow and Aethel killed Emperor Odin and the Crown Prince, they have revealed the existence of dragons to the people, prompting some to fear them. Plus, the nobility is deliberately fabricating reports that White has recruited other species and plans to attack the Empire. So Rose believes that the real meaning of the proposal is that if the Empire's fear of White grows, the Emperor will choose to fight a losing war simply to threaten her since he knows she cannot bear to see the common people suffer. Still, Yig insists that marriage is not an option and that he cannot allow her to meet the Emperor, prompting Rose to respond that the situation has nothing to do with him anymore, as he will soon leave White. Ouch, that hurts! After the meeting, Yig trails behind Rose as she walks and keeps insisting that he will not allow the marriage, leading her to declare that she will act according to her own judgment. He hesitates, wondering if her actions stem from her anger towards him, which leaves her feeling disappointed that he holds such low regard for her. Rose then emphasizes that she is the Lord of White, so she will make the best decision for all that she oversees. He may still perceive her as a child, yet she will not allow her emotions to dictate her important decisions. Yup, I am proud to say that our girl has always been so rational and put White first. This prompts Yig to pause, swiftly apologize for his actions, and tell her that he simply wants someone who can make her happy. Looking at him, Rose makes it clear that he's the most important person in her life, and that will never change. She is letting him go because he has now found the one who brings him happiness, and she wants him to be the happiest person in the world. I can only imagine how hard this is for her to say. When Yig inquires about her happiness, she smiles and tells him that it lies in White. Being the Lord of White brings her pride and joy. She even assures him that she will never forget everything he has taught her, so she urges him to trust her. Yig eventually agrees, expressing his hope that she will choose the path that is most like her. The next day, Rose requests that Prince Sun and Edie compile paperwork about White, prompting Sun to question why she is suddenly reorganizing White. Rose just smiles and reveals that she is preparing an answer for the Emperor. His final task before entering eternal sleep was to ensure Rose would live a normal life and grow up to be a great leader. But now that he has done this, he doesn't know why he is still uneasy. Please, my guy, stop trying to follow in Grace's footsteps! All of a sudden, the memory of the night at the dinner when Rose kissed his cheek and confessed flashes back to him, making him blush. Progress, everyone! We finally see him blush! Meanwhile, Rose summons Edie, Sun, Arthur, and James and announces that they must all join her to the Empire. However, James is hesitant to set up a warp because he knows Yig will not allow her to go to the Empire, prompting our girl to make a menacing look and threaten the poor mage. And just like that, Rose materializes before the Emperor, smirking, her hand tucked into her pocket and accompanied by her baddie henchmen. They all look so powerful. I love it. Adrian greets her with a smile, but he finds it odd that she has come with a dragon rather than Yig, so he figures she is prepared to consider his proposal seriously. No one, Rose? I think not. Rose is ready to speak when Yig shows up and glares at the traumatized Emperor, prompting Rose to order Arthur and James to restrain Yig until she commands them to stop. The two swiftly do as they are told, while Rose approaches Adrian, gives him a scroll, and states that she will unite the lands under White. That being said, she wants Adrian to free White from the Empire's control so that it can become an independent kingdom, which causes everyone in the room to drop their jaws in surprise. However, the Emperor's officials begin to argue that what she's doing is treason, but Rose merely reminds them that the territory she took were almost wastelands, which she transformed into a flourishing place. She then beams and crosses her arms as she informs Adrian that this request is reasonable given that it was thanks to her that he became an emperor, prompting Adrian to say that they could have become the most powerful kingdom if they joined forces. He finds her desire to separate puzzling, which causes Rose to smirk as she explains that they both envision different futures. She understands that he intends to use their marriage to reclaim lost territory, amass wealth, and establish an army to ensure that no other nation would threaten them, which Adrian does not deny because he thinks that the only way to guarantee the people is to govern by force. Rose knows that people are fearful of the unknown, which is why she originally closed White's door. But now she wants her kingdom to be open to everyone because she believes that humanity will eventually come to terms with the fact that dragons, elves, and other species are really not that different from themselves. She is confident it will work because she witnessed it firsthand in White. She knows exactly what she wants and isn't scared to go after it. She has grown so much, and I couldn't be prouder. All hail the queen! Adrian stares at her for a moment before agreeing to her request, but only if she promises not to attack his empire, to which our girl agrees as long as he does not irritate her, that is. She always has the last word. The pact is ultimately completed once Adrian signs the scroll and Rose seals it. But seeing her happy mood makes Adrian wonder if she doesn't hate him. Well, her people's future takes priority over her feelings, and she is excited to see which country the people will choose from now on, hers or his. Adrian finds this amusing since roses will make him think about Lucas White. He begins to wonder whether he has been granted a second chance at life so he may see how little his accomplishments were in the past and see how White is rebuilt by Lucas's descendants. After that, he humbly bows before the new king of White. You see, in the end, pure hearts win. When they return to White, everyone starts complimenting Rose and now calls her Your Majesty, making her very shy. Look, she still has her little fang. I miss this side of her. Rose then apologized to Yig for not informing him, explaining that she wants to handle the situation on her own because she knows how much he despised the Emperor. Yig lowers his head and apologizes to her, stating that he, like everyone else, is proud of her. He then gets down on one knee, believing he has nothing more to teach her, and thanks her for making his and the Founder's dreams come true. He believes Rose will become a magnificent ruler, while Sun quietly watches them from behind, knowing Yig has no more reason to stay and is planning his death. Yig dreams of an aged Lucas on his deathbed, and the old man thanks him for bringing him closer to his dreams. However, he feels worried about leaving Yig alone, and knowing that Yig would witness more deaths in the future makes Lucas feel sad for him. He wishes Yig not to cry or be dumb enough to follow him because he truly believes that the two of them had to meet for a reason, and that one day he too will be able to rest peacefully. My heart! Yigi has been through so much! Yig awakens when he hears Rose, and seeing how close her face is, he hurriedly moves away, blushing. Rose asks hesitantly if he will attend her coronation, which Yig promptly agrees, much to her relief because she had feared he would rush and leave. She then questions why he remained in White even after the first king died, which confuses Yig as to how she knows about it. And he discovers that Gen told her stories about his teacher, aka Mommy, and the first king. Yig decides to be honest, stating that because he does not belong to either the dragon or human worlds, White was the only place where he could connect, and he came to like it. So he vows to continue protecting Lucas's descendants. Rose feels grateful to have been born in White since it enabled her to meet him, who is always there to help her, and she regrets taking his presence for granted. All that staying by her side isn't just because he has to. Yig also did it for himself. When Rose's divine power manifested, he actually smiled that time because he saw it as his chance to finally put an end to his miserable life. Protecting a descendant and dying is what he believes is the perfect way to end his life. But for some reason, being with Rose makes him start thinking about the future. He starts to dream her dreams, and he even once dreamed of marrying her, which he shouldn't. So he did consider marrying her. Tears start streaming from his eyes as he accepts his feelings for Rose, and he suddenly wraps her in a hug, happy to have served her in the end. What is this? He stops being in denial but at the same time still feels the urge to die? Yig gets to his feet and tells Rose that they'll be breaking their contract after her coronation, while Rose is left stunned, her heart still racing as he walks away. That evening, Sun spots Rose looking troubled, prompting our girl to mention that she has been finding Yig weird recently, as if he's hiding something. She really thought Yig was happy with his lover, but she can't help but overthink as Yig continues to look at her with sadness, causing Sun to clench his fist. In a flash, my best boy confronts Yig for making Rose miserable and demands that he tell her everything, which prompts Yig to ask Sun whether he should just tell Rose that he wants to die, but also wants to stay because he loves her. This surprises Sun, but he still advises him to be honest with Rose for once. But instead of taking this seriously, Yig mockingly states that he knows Sun will be the happiest when he dies. Wow, this is what Sun gets for helping? Angrily grabbing Yig's collar, Sun admits that Rose is so important that he simply wants her to be happy, and he continues, with a defeated voice, that he knows Rose will love him alone. This Prince Elf is so pure. Sun then begins pleading with him, thinking that once Rose knows, she'll be able to say a proper goodbye. But this gives Yig even more reason not to inform because he fears that Rose will not break their contract. I understand since eternal life is both a blessing and a curse, but I think he should let Rose make the decision. Today, Sun is gazing at the heirloom his mother gave him, which surprises Life, who assumes Sun is about to propose to someone. However, Sun clarifies with a sad face that this will be his final gift to Rose. The heirloom is a set of an exceptional necklace and earrings, which he asks Rose to wear on her coronation, making our girl hesitant because it is so precious to Sun. He says it's the reason he's giving it to her, and then he puts a sad smile on his face and says he actually wants to give her something else but knows she won't accept it. Yup, his heart! Rose catches right away and gets red in the face, but she collects herself and decides to take his gift, promising to cherish it. Which is good enough for my poor prince here. He is so selfless. After that, Sun is going to expose the truth about her contract with Yig when Lady Lange shows up, stating that she has decided to take action or her grace will be extremely upset. As she's about to tell Rose the truth about Yig, they are interrupted again, this time by Snow, who addresses the lady as her mother. Wait a minute, they look like besties! Rose gets confused by what's going on, so the lady decides to formally introduce herself as the White Dragon, Anastasia, and immediately assures her that she is not in a relationship whatsoever with Yig. Anastasia goes on to claim that Yig is only lying for her own good, which Rose is unaware of. So Sun explains that the contract intertwined her divine power and Yig's magic. So when the contract expires, both powers will vanish. Rose believes that Yig will lose his powers, but Anastasia reveals that Yig is only alive due to the dragon's heart power flowing into him. So without it, he will die, leaving Rose horrified. Rose meets Yig immediately and appears upset as she asks him why he lied. She is hurt to think that he would rather die than stay with her, prompting him to explain that it has nothing to do with her and that he planned to leave from the start when they made the contract. He finally confesses that he's scared that his feelings for her may grow and make his leaving difficult, which is why he wants to hurry up and leave. Rose calms down and blushes as she hears that Yig has feelings for her, but her expression changes as Yig assures her that she will forget him soon. He is confident that she'll find someone who can make her happy and grow old with. He wants her to be happy, he says, but she hates that he never asks what she wants because her happiness is with him, and she'd rather live with him. Yig is so taken aback by her response that he grabs her shoulder and yells that she should never wish that because eternity is lonely, which he never wants her to experience. Rose acknowledges that he is miserable because everyone he cares about has left him, but because of their contract, she is also immortal, which means he has someone who will never abandon him, so she does not understand why he is trying to run away. Well, my boy here fears that one day she will regret and resent him for granting her endless life. To which Rose agrees, but she does not want to worry about a future that has yet to come. Besides, she has never been interested in having a normal life, so she is more than happy to remain by his side until he says he's had enough. While caressing his cheek, Rose assures him that they can spend a long and happy life and that if he grows tired, they can just leave the world together. For the first time in his life, Yig prays, asking God to give him Rose. And there he goes, bawling his eyes out as he finally savors the happiness he deserves. Our patience has paid off, and now we're witnessing their forever, like, literally. Anyway, you guys remember that goofy demon lord? He's now shocked when his door bangs open, showing the very stunning Shasta. Yay! Screen time for my crushie! I'm not sure who I like better, him or Edie. In any case, he has come to bring a letter from Rose, informing him that he must accept responsibility because Yig lost his memories because of him. He has to serve in White's administration, otherwise the 4 breathtaking dragons of White would pour holy water over the demon world. This is so rose-coded. The day of her coronation has arrived, and everyone is there to watch her be crowned. Pope Brad and Ray conducted the ceremony, and once Yig places the crown on her head, people begin cheering for the new King of White. Even Adrian comes to congratulate her and adds that he is interested in marrying her, prompting Yig to grab his girl and claim that she's already taken. Getting bolder, aren't we, mister? Cutie. That evening, as the two of them watch the fireworks, Yig cannot believe she chose to hold her coronation on her birthday to save money. Always clever. They continue to watch the fireworks, and Yig mentions that he is starting to regret forgetting about his birthday because he wants to get a birthday present from her as well, prompting Rose to suggest that they celebrate their birthdays on the same day. They are born and will die together on the same day. Yig agrees as he tenderly caresses her cheek and kisses her beneath the enchanting glow. Yay! A happy ending! I love how her hardship blossomed and how they highlight how difficult immortality is. I realize that our lives are short, so we can be more grateful to be alive, appreciate more, and do less of what we dislike while doing more of what we love. Anyway, who's your favorite character? Mine is, of course, our girl Rose. Thank you for watching till the end. Smile bigger, laugh louder, and love harder, everyone. See you in the next story. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!